The iconic sporting venues around the globe share one thing in common, and that's a magic that's in the air. The competitors sense it and thrive on it, and the fans, they feed off of it. Whether it's Pebble Beach or Lambeau Field, Madison Square Garden or Yankee Stadium, when you visit, the magic is undeniable, and it's the same in motorsports and certainly the same here. Built on dreams and shifting sands along with grit and determination, Bill France built a racetrack like no other. The magic is certainly here, and we're glad you are too. Welcome to the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway. IMSA Prototype Challenge at Daytona International Speedway on the east coast of Florida. And what a great racetrack it is. Whether it's on the high banks or the infield road course, there is plenty of challenge here. Down into turn one, some good passing. Also, the two horseshoes, International Horseshoe, West Horseshoe, and into turn six. Then you want that big run on to the Speedway through Speedway 1 and 2. Good braking and passing down into the bus stop, and a good run from the bus stop gives you a good shot at the checkered flag as you come back around. IMSA Prototype Challenge, round one of the 2022 season. Welcome in, everyone. Brian Hill, along with Jeremy Shaw, will bring you the call today. And cool and damp today, Jeremy, but I don't think it's going to dampen any of the spirits of the drivers behind these prototype machines.
Wonderful to see such a great crowd here on land, Brian, but you're right. The drivers, a little bit of trepidation, certainly. First race of a brand new season, tricky track conditions as well. There's been a bit more drizzle over the last few minutes because up until about 5 minutes ago, several drivers are wondering whether it was wet enough for wet tires, but it sure is.
And race control has declared this a wet race. That means all the drivers must start on rain tires. You have no choice, and that's really a good call for right now. As you said, the rain really starting to come down. Those rain tires are a little softer. They have big grooves to help channel the water away, and that is absolutely critical. I don't think we're going to have to worry either, Jeremy, about the rule aspect of having to complete at least one green flag lap before you change the slicks. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. 19 cars take the green today. Take us through the grid.
Yeah, just one class of car this season, so everyone running the same specifications. There are two different chassis, though, Ligier and GK. And also, there's a bronze category for the either lesser experienced or older drivers. Starting at the back of the grid, in the 19th position, car number 57, brand new team, not often in motorsports, that's John Serino in car number 57. Row 9 of the grid is car number 46, that's Steve Scullen, alongside him Mike Watt in car number 15. Row 8 on the outside is Terry Olsen in car number 3, alongside George Sakos from Canada in car number 61. Row 7, John Brown's the veteran in car number 47, alongside Joe Robillard in car number 43. Row 6, car number 77, that's Brian Thenis from California. He's used to better weather than this. And Ari Baylog in car number 30 on the 11th position into the top 10. Lance Wilsey will start in the 10th position in car number 14, alongside another Canadian, Anthony Mantella, making his debut in the championship this weekend in car number 17. Row 4, George Kurtz in car number 4, alongside Efren Castro, last year's Porsche Carrera Cup North America Pro-Am category champion in car number 18. On row 3 is David Grant in car number 40, alongside Tony Arve, the veteran, in car number 44. Dan Goldberg will start car number 6 from the 4th position, alongside Tony Skazemetz in car number 60. He is a top qualifier in the bronze category. And on the front row of the grid, our champion from last year, Josh Sarche, sharing that number 54, MLT Motorsports Ligier with Dakota Dickerson. He will start second. And on the pole position, what a fantastic story. In car number 23 for JDC Motorsports, a guy who had a horrendous wreck here 8 years ago. On the pole position in his run with this JDC team is Memo Gidley.
So great to see Memo back and in form. He ran last year in GT competition and has done some races along the way since that horrific accident that you talk about at the Rolex 24 back in 2014, I believe it was. It almost cost him his life, and it certainly cost him several years of rehabilitation. And he's a guy that is known for never quitting. He didn't quit on the rehabilitation. He is back and he is up to speed. As I said, he's been driving GT cars, go-karts, anything he can, and he showed that he has certainly not lost any of that speed. Right now, Jeremy, going to be important that those brakes are good and warm on this cool, damp day. When you charge down into turn one, you're going to want to have some brake temperature. Safety car lights are off, and we should be green this time by side start in the wet. It's going to be exciting in turn one.
It is, and remember, Gidley's experience should be good here, although he hasn't driven one of these cars for 4 years. The other guy who should be in good stead here is Tony Kazimierz. He starts in the 3rd position in car number 60. Watch for him.
And Dan Goldberg in the red and blue number 6, outside row 2. A lot of experience there. And the Grant brothers in the 40 with David Grant behind the wheel right now. They'll be charging at the start, looking for the green, waiting out of turn 4, coming up to the tri-oval, and a good, consistent pace set by Gidley, waiting to see the green flag. They'll get to the start zone that has been designated to them by the race director, and when they get there, green flag will wave. It is out. Gidley with a great start, and Kazimierz in that orange and white number 60 right behind, looks to the inside down into turn 1.
Yeah, Gidley's going to have to hold off that inside line. He did, and around the outside tries to go Josh Sargent, but spins.
And that's big contact with the wall on the outside. I believe that was Josh Sargent in the 54 trying to use some of that experience to go around the outside of Gidley. Gets up there where a lot of the water puddles there on the way into one. I think he got in the braking zone, just lost the back end, and around it goes. Contact with the tire wall. He's back underway, and the 17 around as well. That's Anthony Mantella, a rookie in the Prototype Challenge category. He's around in turn 2. Take a look at the replay.
Yeah, and remember, Gidley did exactly what he needed to do there, cut off Tony Kazimierz, and if Josh Sargent wants to be brave and go around the outside, says remember, Gidley, go for it. He did. It didn't work out, though, for Josh Sargent, and that's bad news for the MLT team. Looks like some damage on the rear end of that car, Brian.
Defending champion Sargent and his teammate Dakota Dickerson, and as that car makes contact with the wall, pretty heavy contact, certainly the rear wing I think is going to be askew, and they'll have to change that, and some damage to the bodywork as well as Sargent works his way around. We also saw the problem for 17. Sargent goes around Anthony Mantella as he's backwards there at the exit of turn 1.
No grip at all, is there? Wow, it is slippery out there.
And this is where Sargent has to be so careful. Significant damage to the bodywork on the right rear. Also the rear, on the wing, the end plate is missing on the right side. That's going to allow the air to spill off the wing instead of flowing over it. He'll lose downforce. He really needs to feel out this car. You also have to wonder about the alignment after that impact. And a problem for the 14 down on the infield there at the bus stop.
So that's Wilsey.
Sharing that car with Seb Prio, your champion in Porsche Carrera Cup last year, and Prio having an absolute ball in this prototype machinery as Kazimierz takes the lead into turn 1. A great out-braking maneuver, gets down there low, and that seems to be the preferred braking line. That's where Gidley was in turn 1 at the start, Jeremy, and Kazimierz able to make the better of it that time around.
Yeah, indeed, and the two veterans here using their massive experience in race cars in general. Like I say, remember Gidley hasn't driven one of these cars. He did 4 races for a new team a few years ago, but that team didn't last very long, and so Memo has not driven a car one of these cars since 2018. Now he is, however, in a reasonably good race trim. He drove several races in the SRO series last season with a Bentley Continental GT3 car, and had some success there. He's loving the opportunity here. Tony Kazimierz, well, he's driven just about everything during his career. Originally from Estonia, but he's made his home in Illinois for the last 30-odd years. Tony Kazimierz, hugely experienced. It's now Kazimierz who leads the race from Memo Gidley in 2nd place.
Josh Sargent stays on the racetrack in the 54 from MLT, and that right end plate missing off the wing and the bodywork damage to the right rear. But I'm thinking that they're going to say to Josh, hey, if it feels okay, run the pace that you can run, and we'll make any changes on a pit stop. If they were to get a full course caution, then they've got some extended period of time to get those changes done. But Sargent looked like he's trying to make amends for that mistake that he made in turn 1, Jeremy, and he is holding absolutely nothing back.
No, he's charging hard, isn't he? He's clearly upset with himself, I think, is Josh, and he's charging back now to try and get that car into position. Oh no, there's a problem there for Joe Robillard. He and Stephen McAleer, they seem to have no luck at all here at Daytona. Looks like he's off at turn 5. Is he reversing behind the wall as well, or is he trying to get going again? Hopefully he's trying to get going again.
I was going to say, I hope he's trying to get going, but he's backed off the racetrack now into the mud, so that's going to take some help from corner workers to get that car back out, because he's may have actually even high-sided it there on the pavement. He's got the wheel spinning, he's got it back underway, and there is damage to that car, though. The front end definitely seems to be askew. The splitter seems to be down on the ground, and damage to the nose cone on that Duquesne chassis. You said it, Jeremy. They have had absolutely no luck at Daytona here. He and Stephen McAleer, the last 2 years have been dreadful. They've run up front, they've shown great speed, but have just not had the results to match. And now Memo Gidley coming under pressure from the 44. Tony Ave, the three drivers up front right now, Jeremy, have a lot of experience under their belt.
Boy, don't they just? Certainly the three most experienced drivers in the field in terms of top-line professional racing. Tony Ave, they're looking to the outside. Coincidentally, both of these two guys, there's a scholarship program that I've been proud to put together for the last 30 years. Tony Ave won it in 1992, so 30 years ago. Memo Gidley was a scholarship winner in 1995. So Ave overdoes it. He did clip the wall because he's lost that position again coming off turn 6 to Memo Gidley.
Well, I was so young back in 1992, I don't remember it, Jeremy. But yeah, and I think Ave may have damage. He was trying so hard to get the power down, and even though these cars have traction control, it's a rudimentary form of traction control, and you could watch the back end of that 44 dancing around as Ave trying to get the power down on that Ligier, and it looks like damage, or a flat, I should say. The left rear tire is down.
Yeah, I think it is, isn't it? So that's unfortunate. The left rear.
I think they might get together here with Memo Gidley coming off of turn 6. Let's take a look and see. This is where Ave was really trying to get the power down, and he squeezes Gidley to the inside just a little bit in the brake zone. Watch the right front dive plane, and that splitter right there makes contact with the left rear of Tony Ave, and that's what cuts down that left rear tire.
I think you're absolutely right, Brian, and I apportion no blame there whatsoever to Memo Gidley. Tony Ave tried to kind of take a defensive line coming that corner. He cut down rather than use the full width of the racetrack on the exit of that corner. It was infinitesimal contact between those two, but clearly enough just to either take out the valve stem or puncture that left rear tire. Really unfortunate for Tony Ave and Canon 44. He's going to bring that car onto the pit lane.
Sharing that car with Antoine Cameau this weekend, and great to see Tony Ave and his team here in Prototype Challenge this year. And when you think about Tony Ave and Memo Gidley, and you think about the experience those two drivers have, name me a car or a series that the two of them have not run in combined here in North America, including sprint cars and midgets and Indy cars, you name it. Between those two drivers, I think they've driven just about everything.
Yeah, and they both pretty much started out in Formula Ford type cars, or Formula Ford or USF 2000 as it is nowadays. So they go back a long way, and just both great guys. And I mean, it's characters like these two that make this sport so much fun to be involved in. And it's great to see them. They're both, neither of them has given up on their racing careers. They both want to drive whenever they can. Both of them is, I mean, Tony is even more competitive than Memo. Memo, I mean, he races also in sailboats, for goodness sake. So he'll race anything. Tony Ave, he started out really in snowmobile racing.
Yeah, he was a world champion in snowmobiling, and he's a two-time Trans Am champion. He's won in just about everything that he's ever driven as well. And I think that's one of the neat things about Prototype Challenge in general. You've got two very different types of drivers in this series. Both are welcome and both are very, very quick. And those are the professional race car drivers. And then they're the drivers who are just as good as the professional drivers a lot of times, but they make a living doing something else. Their profession isn't driving race cars. Their profession is something else, but they're pretty good behind the wheel of these Prototype Challenge machines as well.
Yeah, real life, as I call it.
Josh Sargent still trying to charge up through the pack, get back up towards the front end of the field. 8th position right now, and timing and scoring is now he's trying to take the fight to the 77 in front. And you've got to wonder about how that car is handling. That was a big hit into the tire wall. The diffusers are skewing the back. the end plates missing off the right side of the rear wing, and the bodywork in the back that helps direct air over, and the diffuser, which helps direct air under, all create downforce. So Sargé driving a car that is, I would say, less than ideal right now, but working his way back up inside the top 10 and 8th right now.
Suboptimal, I think you would say, the aerodynamic balance of that car right now. Tom Brown is the race engineer and strategist for Dr. Mike Thompson's team, MLT Motorsports. Eric Van Bibber is the team manager there. It's a super little organization. They won this championship last season at the final hurdle. I mean, they needed a bit of luck on their side. They needed a fellow Ligier driver to allow Dakota Dickerson to make up a position on the final lap of the final race last season. And that was enough just to win the championship for that team. So they're coming in here. I believe they're not planning, Brian, on defending their championship in the IMSA Prototype Challenge, but they have bigger plans.
Yeah, don't be surprised to see that team in WeatherTech competition in some of the sprint races this year. And I think that's the other great thing about the Prototype Challenge series. You can run here, you can learn, and then you can take your skills and your car and go run in the WeatherTech series, the LMP3 category. And I think a lot of these teams, you'll see Mueller Motorsports is running the Rolex 24 this weekend, other teams doing the same thing. And it's one of those deals where it's one of the great things about IMSA competition is you've got multiple places to run this machinery. You kind of pick and choose what you want to do. And it'll be great to see that 54 car, which won't be able to run the 54 number if it runs in WeatherTech, because that belongs to Core Autosport, but it'd be great to see Dr. Thomas and his team there in WeatherTech.
Yeah, all sorts of cool stories in this race. A really good chart out certainly by Josh Sargé. He's right on the tail now with Brian Venus, who's sharing that kind of a 77 with Patrick Kujala, who's he's a Finnish driver, although he's born in Marbella, Spain. Full course caution now out on the racetrack.
I believe that is the 57.
Right, it is.
Brand new team to this type of racing, the Serinos. John Serino, the father, Josh Serino, one of his children driving with him this weekend, and you may see some of his other kids drive with him throughout the season, but not the debut they wanted, as damage to the left front of the 57. Kind of an interesting family story there, Jeremy, as far as the names of the children go and how they were named. If you don't think this is a racing family, run through the nicknames of John Serino's kids.
Yeah, that's right. The eldest one is nicknamed Nigel because he was born in the year of Nigel Mansell's Formula One World Championship in '92. The second one is nicknamed after Hans Schmidt. These are not their proper names, but these are the names they're known at, certainly within the family. The third son is known as Jacques, and the daughter is known as Senna. And all of them involved in this team, by the way. I believe Senna is going to be holding up the pit board for the team. She also does some PR for them as well. And the other two boys are both on over the wall during the pit stops, assuming they get that far. But it doesn't look like they're going to do, because it looks like John is out of that car. He's a former two-time national champion in the SCCA runoff competition, so he has a lot of success there. But this is a completely different ball game, though, for the Serinos. They're from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
And he's an eye surgeon, a very successful one, obviously. But like you said, I mean, this isn't just a group of people who said, hey, let's buy a race car and go racing. First of all, you have to have a certain level of experience to compete here, but they've done more than compete. The entire family has raced, and they've raced well. As you said, John, 2 national championships in SCCA. Josh has a strong SCCA record as well. So they have talent behind the wheel, but as you said, a completely different ball game. John Serino will make a trip to the medical facility, as you always have to if you're involved in a collision. The car is stopped on the track, so they'll check him out. Meanwhile, with full course caution, that will get the field gathered up. And the question is, when the pit lane opens, Jeremy, how many of these cars with damage are we going to see on pit lane? Specifically, will we see the 54 of Josh Sargé? That significant damage to the back of that car. And while I think he's able to get some decent lap times in the wet, where it's all about mechanical grip. I think this racetrack's going to dry before the end of this 3-hour event, the only endurance race that Prototype Challenge runs this season. The rest of the races will be 1 hour and 45 minutes. So this is a 3-hour race, and I think before the 3 hours is up, this racetrack's going to be dry, and at that point in time, you're going to need the aerodynamics and the balance in that car.
You are, that's right, and I think they will come in now, and certainly at least assess the damage. It'll put him to the back of the pack again, but we've seen how quick Josh is. He's able to get himself all the way up into the 7th position during his full course caution. Incidentally, there must have been a problem on that last lap right before we went to full course caution. For Efren Castro, kind of at 18. He was running in the 5th position ahead of George Kurtz in kind of a 4, but he's now fallen back to the 8th place in kind of a 18. That's Efren Castro. That's one of the Mueller Motorsports America cars. The sister car, kind of a 21, was driven by Moritz Kranz, who did everything except win last year's championship. He was on pole position for all 6 races. Because of the way through on the last lap, he finished 2nd in the championship. He's supposed to be sharing at number 21 car with Bob Doyle, but unfortunately they had, well, whatever drama you can imagine they had during the qualifying session last night. Start off with clipping the Michelin RFID tyre reader on the pit lane exit. That caused damage to the front of the car, which ended up causing damage to the engine. So that, I believe, is the reason that car did not start this race, why we had 19 cars on the grid instead of 20.
And that's an expensive problem to have. The RFID reader, it reads the tires as you leave pit lane. That's how technologically advanced the series is. You drive between these 2 cones that read the tires. So it scans them, knows exactly the tires that you have on. You have to start the race on the tires that you qualified on, and that's how they know exactly what tires, beyond a shadow of a doubt, you have on. If you hit one of those readers when you leave pit lane, you are responsible for the damage to replace it. They can cost up to $70,000 for an entire set. So there was contact with one of the readers, there was damage to the car, which overheated the engine, which damaged the engine. So now you've got a damaged engine and RFID readers.
Change the subject, Brian.
Yeah.
Change the subject, please.
Racing is not for the faint of heart. Just got a text from Bob Stalling saying Memo is doing what he loves to do. So great to see him out there. And is that not true? I mean, think about that. Bob Stallings owned the Gainesco Red Dragon that Memo Gidley was piloting that fateful day at the Rolex 24 in 2014, when car in front of him, they came out of the International Horseshoe and Gidley had a car in front of him that pulled out of the way, and that exposed a stalled car on the racetrack, and there was absolutely no time for Memo to do anything. Hit that back of the car at full song, and it compressed the front of that Corvette Daytona prototype all the way back into the driver's compartment. Extensive injuries to his lower extremities, his pelvis, his back, and that's why we talk about the comeback from Memo Gidley has been so impressive. I mean, I can't even imagine the workouts just to get back to strength, but beyond the workouts, the pain that comes with that, the pain that comes with the healing. I talked to him at Sebring last year, and he said, you know, I was so careful not to fall into the trap of relying on medication too heavily to help me with that. I didn't want to be one of those people and fall into that trap of getting hooked on and requiring and needing that to get back to where I needed to get. So, you know, I focused on being the best me that I can be and working out and using whatever natural remedies he could do to help. And it's a story of challenge, it's a story of determination, and it's a story of comeback. And that pole position was so important yesterday, along with the race wins that he had last year that you talked about behind the wheel of the Bentley. And now to see Memo Gidley on the front row here, starting from the pole and running up front, just so impressive.
He's such an inspiration. I mean, his whole career has been about inspiring people. And, you know, for Memo, the glass is always half full. He went through some really dark days after that accident. I mean, he couldn't even sit without insane pain, and his now wife and his mom got him through it all, and he's just a great guy, and it's wonderful to see him running up the front again, just doing what he loves to do, which is drive racing cars. I mean, as you say, he'll race anything. He was in a go-kart this week. He's a very accomplished go-kart driver, particularly out at Sonoma Raceway. He spends a lot of time up there. That's his home racetrack, and he'll be not in a racing car or coaching or something. He'll be at the wheel of his go-kart.
There are a lot of drivers in the paddock this weekend who can be role models for the scouts that are here by the thousands this weekend, and Memo Gidley certainly one of those. Robert Wickens certainly one of those. When we talk about comebacks, the IndyCar driver paralyzed after that just amazing crash at Pocono several years ago. Wickens back in a car and racing competitively for the first time since that accident here this weekend in Michelin Pilot Challenge. And just another story, another inspiration for the youngsters to look up to. You don't have to have the big sponsorships and the big endorsements to be inspirational, and these guys are, and they are back at it. What did Memo Gidley learn in that first stint as he trails Kazimierz into turn one of the white 23 and 3 abreast? And I believe that's one of the Mueller Motorsports cars. That would be the 18, I believe it is, going around the high side into turn one, trying to pick up positions.
Yeah, for Castro there, trying to make up some positions. Incidentally, after that pit stop with a flat tire, Tony Arve, in kind of a 44, was able to stay on the lead lap. That's the Arve Motorsports with GKS, kind of a 44. It's a Ligier chassis, and Tony Arve is back on the lead lap. So he, in that kind of a 44, is going to be charging his way through the field. That's a predominantly orange car, so watch out for that one during this race. Memo Gidley, go back to Memo though, Brian. Think about he will be very mindful of the fact that Tony Kazimierz, his co-driver, Bruce Hamilton, with the greatest of respect, isn't as quick as Tony's, nor even of Memo's co-driver, Alexander Carribert, who's making his debut this weekend, a youngster. Bruce Hamilton, a youngster he is not, but he's a fabulous guy and he's a super enthusiast and he's a pretty useful driver, but he is not as fast as some of these other guys. So Memo will be bearing that in mind as well. He doesn't need to push at this stage in the race. Too hard, at least.
Yeah, exactly. The 44 of Tony Arve has gotten around Lance Wilsey. You said he stayed on the lead lap, and he is pressing forward. And that's where the experience comes from with a driver like Arve. Picks up another position, gets by the number 3, Terry Olson, as they come into the bus stop. And I think that's 3 or 4 cars since the drop of the green. Arve is on a charge, and Olson now under attack from Wilsey. Wilsey around the high side, coming through NASCAR 4, and is going to get that done. I think Terry Olson got held up a little bit in that pass by Tony Arve, and that allowed Wilsey to get the run and get by. Good run and good pass by Lance Wilsey.
I think that's 7 or 8 positions at least for Tony Arve there as he comes across the line. Where is he showing up on my scoring yet? He is in the 9th position. Yeah, and he took the restart in 17th. So 8 positions gained on that lap by Tony Arve. And a new fastest lap of the race on that green flag lap by Tony Kazimierz. He kind of a 6-yard race leader. He's got 2.2 seconds over Memo Gidley at the completion of lap 9. This, by the way, is a 3-hour race. And we're just 22 minutes into it at the moment. Long, long way to go.
Arve passed George Kurtz in the number 4. Now has his sights set on Efren Castro in the blue and white 18 from Mueller Motorsports, just in front, out of the West Horseshoe towards turn 6. Tony Arve has gotten the pass done here numerous times, but the farther forward he goes, the more he's going to have to work to get past Castro on the high side, trying to get the power down. You see just that little wiggle as the traction control trying to help those Michelin tires get grip. Arve down to the inside in the orange and white 44 is going to get it done. Arve in the Ligier chassis, Castro in the 18 in a Duquesne. 2 different chassis running, and it's interesting, Jeremy, in years past, we've thought of the Duquesne, which was called a Norma a couple of years ago, we've always thought that car being a little more slippery, a little faster in a straight line, but it's been the Ligier that seems to be faster here this weekend in segments 2 and 3, which are the high-speed sections of the racetrack. And Tony Abe using that straight line to an advantage, that and his skill and experience in the wet. He's going to pick up another one past the 77.
Yeah, good charge here. Ahead then of Brian Phoenix up into the 6th position now is Tony Arbe's completion of lap 10. And yeah, you're right. And the second generation of LMP3 car, which was introduced a couple of years ago in Europe. Who was the spin there? Was that Phoenix who spun?
I think it was.
It was introduced a couple of years ago. Was a kind of a 77 US Racetronics entry for Brian Phoenix. A lot of experience in Lamborghinis. And yeah, let's have a look, see what happened. There's looking to the inside is Tony Arve, and trying to follow him through there was Brian Phoenix. Just carried a little bit too much speed towards the apex and the back end. It's so super slippery out there, Brian, isn't it?
Well, and that's the problem right now, Jeremy, especially down there into turn 1. You get slowed down. Aerodynamics don't help anymore at that speed. So at that point in time, it's all about mechanical grip, and physics is physics. You get to a point where you just can't save it. Regardless how much opposite lock you may have in, it's just not going to settle back down. And I think that's exactly what happened to Brian Phoenix. Meanwhile, Josh Charget did not pit under that full course caution, still on the racetrack, and he's about to fall victim to Tony Abe as they come out of the high banks, turn 2 onto the back straightaway down towards the bus stop. Abe is going to have to go around the high side in his 44, but Charget, I think, is just holding on the best that he can. And all the while, he'll be communicating with the crew, Jeremy, telling them what the car's doing, what it feels like, what's it like under braking, what's it like in a straight line, what's the steering wheel like, is it off-centered or not? That's going to tell the crew and Dakota Dickerson what they might be able to do to it on a stop should they elect to come in and try to effect some repairs. So you don't want to dive into something so deep that you can't get back out. But you got to know what you're dealing with so you can be prepared when it's time to make those repairs when they come in for their pit stop.
Yeah, indeed so. And so, yeah, there's a lot of thought goes into the setup of these cars, obviously, and the more information you can get on the pit wall, the better. Just a couple of notes, by the way. Anthony Mantella made a pit stop as we came back to green. And he's I believe a lap down now in kind of a 17. That's the AWA entry. We shared that car with fellow Canadian Ori Fidani. Also back up and running again after that early spin. We saw Joe Robillard in the Robillard Racing Caliber 43. He also is running, but he is 2 laps off the pace, unfortunately.
Yeah, Stephen McAleer, I know, has to just be shaking his head down in the pit lane. You and I talked about it, and they just have, he and Joe Robillard, absolutely no luck at this racetrack at all. They've had mechanical gribblings that have attacked them. Stephen McAleer, while running in the top 3, I believe it was 2 or 3 years ago, after the final pit stop, lost a wheel in the infield and was out of the race where it looked like victory could have been within his grasp. And sometimes you just go to racetracks, Jeremy, where you always seem to do well and have good luck. Other times, not so much. That's the way it is for Robillard here. And there's the 46 around. Steve Scullin. And the conditions right now, I think, are so difficult, Jeremy. The 40 is going to have a problem as well. Gets on the paint, manages to keep the back end underneath him coming off the hairpin, but anything that's painted right now, you don't want to be anywhere close to. That paint fills in all the aggregate. It makes for a very slick surface, and when that paint gets water on it, it's like hitting ice. Yeah,
it's super slippery out there, isn't it? And I think, yes, Steve Scullin was able to keep going in without losing the lead lap, so he's in that kind of a 46 running in the 16th position. Anthony Mantella 1 lap down in 17th. In caliber 17, Joe Robillard 2 laps down in 18th position. So the only car not running that started the race is the Offenham caliber 57 of John Serino. I think he's out of the running already. And of course, Bob Doyle and Moritz Kranz did not start in caliber 21.
Dan Goldberg
again for our race leader, Tony Kazimets.
Yeah, not surprising. The track should be getting quicker. I think the moisture's beginning to go away. Kazimets first. Tim Memo Gidley is still running in second, then the 44 of Tony Ave in third now. Dan Goldberg, his latest victim. And where was Tony Ave on the restart, Jeremy?
He was in the 17th position. A lot slower on that lap, though, Brian, all of a sudden. There was 5 seconds slower on that lap. Has the rain started to come down again? Yeah, everybody's going a lot slower all of a sudden. The rain must be picking up.
There's some raindrops on the camera that we didn't see earlier down at the West Horseshoe. And
In fact, the lead, it was 5.7 seconds last time. There's a spin for the number 18 car. That's Efren Castro. He's having a torrid time out there at the moment. It's very different to a Porsche, this Efren Castro, but he's absolutely loving it. Originally from the Dominican Republic, got a huge following this weekend. He was planning on just doing the WeatherTech race, but he was looking to get more experience going into the WeatherTech race his debut next week, and came up with the idea it was kind of too much speed there to turn 6, and around he goes. But he's able to continue without losing any ground. But on that last lap, the race leader, wait a minute, what's going on in the scoring? It's gone wonky.
Not only difficult for the drivers on the racetrack, but for timing and scoring as well, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, I think so. My scoring went haywire a bit there. My apologies. So this last lap was a 1:57.2 for Tony's Kazimierz. That's about a second off his best lap of the race so far, and the gap now is continued to extend over Memo Gidley. So it was a scoring glitch there, but yeah, it's 7.5 seconds the gap between first and second. Tony Ave now up into third place ahead of Dan Goldberg, but he's another 8 seconds behind Memo right now.
Well, and looking at the radar, seems like most of the rain is out of the area. I think the conditions are going to continue to get better throughout the day, and that's where the drivers are really going to have to read this racetrack and how it changes. You've changed your brake bias. That's how much front brake or rear brake that you have in the car as a percentage. You've changed that because of the rain, and as the racetrack dries, you're going to have to change it back and try to keep that car balanced in the braking zones. And then as the grip comes to you, you're going to have to start to think about the line that you're on and where you want to put the car. And at some point in time, you're going to have to make the decision as to when it's dry enough for the rain tires to come off and slicks to go on. I don't think we're anywhere near that right now, but with 2 hours and 28 minutes to go here, those are the decisions that are going to be facing these drivers, these engineers, and these crews coming up.
The wet conditions, Brian, if it was dry out there, these cars struggle to do an hour around Daytona International Speedway on a tank of fuel. But with a wet and using a lot less full throttle than it would otherwise, we should be able to go well over an hour, particularly with that full course caution. It lasted, I think, 8 minutes from was the length of that caution period, 2.5 laps under yellow. That also will help the fuel consumption on these cars, and maybe now the team will be looking to complete this race on just 2 pit stops. If it had been full dry, they would most likely be looking at making 3 pit stops during the race without the addition of any full course caution laps, in which case the cars will be going slower. But right now I think we should be able to do it on 2 pit stops. There is also to be taken into account the fact that drivers have to do a minimum of 1 hour behind the wheel. That's changed from last season. So an hour is the minimum drive time for this race.
And as you said, in the dry, getting a full run on a tank of fuel for an hour is difficult to do. So certainly puts those drivers, the starting driver, in a position where they might have to go more than 1 stint. Really interesting watching Tony's Kazimierz right now, Jeremy. We talk about where you run and a problem for the 43. We talk about where you run in the rain. I was talking about where you place the car on the racetrack. Kazimierz off apexes in the International Horseshoe and the West Horseshoe, but right on what we would call the normal dry line through turn 6 and up onto the banking. So he's really kind of found a place where he's looking for grip, and he's going to drive in different places. A lot of times in the rain, the grip is not on the normal dry line, because that's the line, the dry line gets polished, and it's where the fluid gets put down and all of that, and you find better grip, at least a car width or so off that normal dry line. That's where Kazimierz is placing his car. in the infield. But as I said, when I watched him go onto the banking the last time, he was down on the apex. Joe Robillard with a problem down in turn one, gets the car back onto the racetrack. That paved area out there really is helpful for a driver when he overshoots that braking down in turn one.
Yeah, scenic route there, having a look at the closer look at the tire wall. He wasn't too close to it in the end. It'll cost him a few seconds, but nothing more than that for Joe Robillard. So there's nice consistent pace out front here for Tony Skazmit's doing low 57s, 157.1 last time around. Memo Gidley turned at 157.9. The gap between first and second is out to 10 seconds, but that won't be of a concern to Gidley at this stage. Tony Arve fractionally slower than Memo Gidley at 1 minute 58.0 in the third position. In fourth position, Dan Goldberg at kind of a 6. He turned at 2 minutes 0.4. And then behind him are Josh Sarche, 159.5, and George Kurtz, an excellent 157.6 last time around, in kind of a 4 running in the 6th position. Whoops.
And that was synchronized spinning down in the International Horseshoe. The 17 went around. That's Anthony Mantella, and I believe that was the 43. No, it wasn't the 43, the 46 there with him. That's one of those deals, a lot of times you just get target fixation on the car in front. You get there in the middle of the corner. So Mantella has his problem, and I think that's the 18 actually that goes around. I think what happens a lot of times, you get in there and you react to the car going around and you lift abruptly. The weight transfers to the front very quickly and around the rear end goes. So that was the 18 of Efren Castro trying to get another lap on Mantella. When Mantella had the problem, Castro really with nowhere to go makes that sudden movement and around the car goes, and it shows you just how quickly you can go from stuck to unstuck in these conditions here at Daytona.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It is pretty treacherous out there at the moment, no question about it. Maybe just some spots of rain. It certainly isn't raining heavily at this stage, and you know, some drivers are more attuned to these conditions than others. We're looking here at the Motel 6 car of Performance Tech Motorsports. Dan Goldberg comes across the line there. His 16th lap right behind him, both Josh Sarche and the aforementioned George Kurtz, who's really doing a fine job there. Again, he was quicker than both of those two cars ahead of him on that last lap.
You think about George Kurtz, he's a guy, you know, we were talking about drivers who make their living driving and other drivers who make their living and then go drive. And George Kurtz, certainly one of those. Goldberg on the outside of Sarge there, side by side through the international hairpin. Sarge trying to get around, and that's going to be a tough ask. Both Ligier chassis, we'll see what kind of straight line speed they have. And Kurtz in that red and black number 4, the third car in the order as they head into the West Horseshoe, wants to have a say in it as well. And I was talking about George Kurtz. He drove in at least 5 different series last year and ran well at all of them. Looking to the outside, one Sebring in an LMP3 car with John Bennett and Colin Brown last year. Watch this, Sarge into the inside of the International Horseshoe and a little contact. And that's the problem. You've got to really think about protecting the inside right now. You don't want to be the guy on the outside, because if the guy on the inside loses grip, you're the bumper. And that's exactly what happened that time to Dan Goldberg in the International Horseshoe. You really want to think about protecting the inside, even though, as we were talking a little earlier, in several of these corners, the better grip is in the middle of the racetrack or even on the outside. But in those braking zones, you really need to think about how to play your chess pieces so that you don't end up as a part of someone else's problem.
Yeah, that's true. But certainly Josh Sarche, he just carried a bit too much speed into that East Horseshoe, given the fact that that car doesn't have much downforce with the damage to its rear end. And he got sideways, and he's kind of lucky that the damage, the contact wasn't more stout between those two. I don't think there'll be a penalty that, but if he did cause Dan Goldberg to spin, there surely would have been a penalty, because it was definitely Sarche's problem. who caused what could have been an issue between those two cars. But no harm, no foul. They both carry on again. They're still running fourth, fifth, and sixth position. Losing ground to Tony Harvey, but having a good little battle amongst themselves. Again, those three battling for fourth, fifth, sixth. Their last lap times just around about 2 minutes, whereas each of the top three were in the mid 157s, so almost 3 seconds fast.
Dan Goldberg with a great drive off of the International Horseshoe and the blue and red number 6, Hotel 6 sponsorship on the side of it. Now Sargé off in the West Horseshoe. He's been dancing on the edge in the braking zones and just a little too far that time. And he's off, does a great job to keep the car out of the tires, but so much ground that he had gained, he is now lost.
Yeah, he has, and I think he's just sort of, trying to, just kind of pushing a bit too hard at this stage. He just got in, the car sort of stepped sideways in the braking area. He tried to hold it. He did so again mid-corner. By then he's running off the road, so he does a good job here, at least of keeping that car away from the tire barrier. And yes, it'll cost him a position or perhaps two and some ground, but he's got to hope he doesn't get too much grass in the radiator of that car. I think he'll be fairly fortunate there by the looks of it, and he'll be able to continue there with just that loss of probably a couple of positions. Yeah, he's behind Lance Wilsey, who's also doing some good lap times last time around, about 59.6 for Lance Wilsey, kind of 14. Well, that car going backwards took me early in the race, but Lance has made a nice comeback in that kind of 14 to be up in the 7th position.
I think for a lot of these drivers who don't make their living doing this, a lot of times if they have good car control skills, the rain can actually help close that delta between their lap times in the dry and the driver who makes his living doing this in the dry. The rain can be the great equalizer if they've got good car controls and skills and they've got a good car underneath them. The speeds are down a little bit, so the confidence can be there. You can find that grip, and off you go. Grip seems to be at a premium right now for Josh Sargé. He needs to put the problems out of his mind and just drive the car that he's got. But I'm wondering too, Jeremy, as this track has dried and the lap times are getting quicker and quicker, is that what we're starting to see? We talked about this earlier. The balance of that car in the wet is going to be a very different ball game than when the speeds begin to pick up. The lap times are coming down. Well, the problems are increased.
They're actually not. I mean, they are for a few drivers, but the fastest lap of the race was a 156.2. That was set just a couple laps after the resumption after the full course caution on lap 11. We now completed 18 laps, and the leaders are doing 157s. That was the best lap this time around, lap 18. Memo Gidley 157.3, but certainly the track is not appreciably drier than it was a little while ago, so it's not drying out very quickly, Brian.
Round 1 of the 2022 IMSA Prototype Challenge Championship underway from Daytona International Speedway. 2 hours and 18 minutes to go. The only endurance round in the 2022 season as another car around in turn 1. 3 hours here. The rest of the season will be 1 hour and 45-minute races, but that really has cast a different complexion on this event, Jeremy. Your strategy is a little bit different as to who you qualify and who you start. And this rain has brought a different strategy as well.
It has 157.01 there for Tony's Chasm, it's our race leader. Memo Gidley virtually identical lap time in second place. Tony Harvey lost about a second on a lap to Memo, 158.3 for Tony. The next best lap actually turned by Lance Wilsey on this lap. In that 6th position, he's now 5 seconds behind George Kurtz, who's running in 5th. So good run by both of those two. I think the car we saw spinning, by the way, I believe with George Stakos, who fell back behind Steve Scullen again. Those two have been sort of back and forth between 14th and 15th, depending on who's spinning next.
So impressed with the job George Kurtz is doing. He'll hand that car over to John Bennett, another driver with a lot of experience in this LMP3 machinery. Kurtz now with a great move under braking into the West Horseshoe, picks up the position for now, but can Goldberg come back? I don't think so. Kurtz with a good drive off the corner. It really looks like his number 4 CrowdStrike Racing by D Motorsports, Ligier, is working incredibly well. Stable on the way into the corner, Jeremy, and perhaps more importantly, it really seems to put the power down. I have not seen that car move around a lot under acceleration coming off the corner for fourth place.
George Kurtz there, a nice clean pass down, that's at turn 6, isn't it? Or turn 5, excuse me. Nice pass there, cleanly down the inside. George Kurtz up then at 1 position. Ahead of Dan Goldberg. Wow, that's a really, really good run by George.
And I've watched George Kurtz over the years, and he's just gotten faster and faster and faster. So impressive, so impressive. As I said, he ran in at least 5 different series last year, and I mean, just he's getting more and more experience as he goes, and it shows, especially in conditions like this.
Yeah, no, he takes his racing very seriously. He's CrowdStrike, isn't he, George Kurtz?
Correct.
Yeah. He's had a very, very successful business career. Very talented guy in the internet safety, I suppose, isn't it, for want of a better term. But he takes his racing very seriously now, and he's doing a really nice job, as you say.
I think a lot of drivers that are in a position like himself or John Bennett have the talent, obviously, but they use their business to then help them develop their talent. They build their business to a point where the business survives with their input, obviously, because he is very hands-on in his business, but it's also afforded him, literally and figuratively, the opportunities to go drive a lot. And that's what it takes to be a good race car driver. You start a little bit later in life because you've built your business, but that doesn't mean you don't have the talent. George Kurtz showing us that he certainly does. He and John Bennett sharing this car are in the Bronze Cup category, both bronze drivers, so they're running for that Bronze Cup, but just really, really impressed with the job that he has shown today.
Very much so, and Lance Wilsey as well. He got number 14. Actually, he's quicker again on that last lap by half a second than George Kurtz. So Lance Wilsey, another guy. He's an oncologist surgeon from Massachusetts. Again, a good guy. He's done a lot of experience in his racing career over the years. He's sharing this car with Sebastian Priaulx, who's a young Charger, winner of last year's Carrera Cup North America. Massively impressive he was in that, just 21 years of age. Priaulx will be doing the second stint in this race. But Lance, at the age of I don't think you mind me saying, the age of 60 from Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts, really doing a fine job in that patriotically liveried Sean Creech Motorsports this year, car number 14.
Well, and one thing's for certain, you and I don't want to get into any kind of cerebral conversation with him. As you said, surgeon and oncologist, went to Harvard Medical School. So anytime you're a surgeon and oncologist, you're pretty smart. You throw Harvard in there as well. It just kind of adds, puts a period, a little punctuation on an exclamation mark, as Wilsey now all over the back of Dan Goldberg in the number 6. Wilsey up the inside in his very patriotic red, white, and blue livery number 14, gets it done. He got it done easily, Jeremy.
Yeah, super. I mean, that was a really nice pass too. Dan Goldberg has, he's not giving up, is he?
He's not over with yet.
Good stuff between those two. Dan Goldberg, he's got a lot of success. He won a race last season. He had 2 wins in the old IMSA Prototype Challenge back in the old Elan Mazda days. About a decade ago now, isn't it, for Dan Goldberg? So hugely experienced, and he's going to be sharing this car with a young Paraguayan Oscar Bitar, excuse me, like guitar, but Bitar. But Dan, he's clearly struggling in these conditions right now. Maybe he's kind of overworked those wet weather tires, and now seems to be struggling.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, and you can, that's the thing about a rain tire. It's softer rubber and it is susceptible to heat. And as standing water goes away on the racetrack, you still want that soft rubber to give you grip, but it doesn't have any of the standing water to keep it cool. And consequently, when it begins to get hot, they can go away. And when they do, the grip goes away very, very quickly. Somebody not going away, Memo Gidley still holding down second place. And I think the other thing that we've seen is a very smart drive by Memo saying, hey, right here, we're running second. We've got still 2+ hours to go. His teammate has been very quick, surprisingly quick to me throughout the weekend in the number 23, Alexander Carribert, who doesn't really have any experience. But when we talk about the comeback from Memo Gidley, I'll take you back to the Rolex 24 in 2014. Memo Gidley in the Red Dragon, the number 99. There's the Ferrari who has a problem. And here comes Memo Gidley.
Unsighted by the Ferrari in front of him. That was just a horrific accident. Oh, I hate seeing that, to be honest.
I had both the privilege and the misfortune. It just gives me chills to see it to this day. I had both the privilege and the misfortune to be calling the race at that time. Dorsey Schrader sitting beside me, and those who know me know that I'm not usually at a loss for words, but I got to tell you, I was shocked and sickened by what I saw, and I was so frightful for what the outcome might be. But fast forward, here's the outcome. Memo Gidley qualifying on the pole, running second at a prototype at Daytona.
Yeah, amazing, really. Absolutely astonishing. It's
still shocking. I mean, I think you and I are both in the same mode right now, Jeremy. I mean, you see it, and it just kind of, it just takes you back. And I think the other thing, and I would urge you, if you've not met Memo Gidley, I would urge you to try to meet him at some point in time. Like I said, there's so many inspirations in this paddock, and Gidley sticks out, so does Robert Wickens, as we were talking about earlier, but there's so many other inspirations, these professional athletes that are so inspiring. And stop by and talk to them. That's the great thing about the IMSA paddock. You can reach out to these guys and you can meet them. And like I said, if you want role models, here they are.
You are, and remarkably, in next week's Michelin Pilot Challenge race for GT cars, GT4 cars, and TCRs, in addition, there's a spin. It's Tony Arve, isn't it? In addition to Robert Wickens, there's going to be two paralysed drivers in that race with Michael Johnson, who's another inspiration to everybody. Not as well known as Robert Wickens, but what a character is Michael Johnson as well. What happened to Tony Arve? Wow.
I wonder if he dropped a wheel off the left side coming out of the horseshoe and it went right. We didn't quite see where that began, but around he goes, and he had worked his way up. I don't know if he's maintained third position or not. I'm not exactly sure where the charging George Kurtz is, because he has been on a tear. But Ave back underway, and the car looks none the worse for wear. It only takes one yellow to pack everything back up. We still have over 2 hours to go.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Brian. A long way to go. We have, as you say, we're only 50 minutes into this race, but that'll certainly cost him quite a bit of time. He's coming off the banking now towards start-finish line. The race leader. Oh, no, he's not, is he? Excuse me, he's coming down the back straight into the bus stop. The race leader now is just crossing the start-finish line. That's Tony's Casimir. So all of a sudden, Tony Arve his deficit to Gidley was 11 seconds on that last lap. It's going to be a lot more than that this time around.
You know, looking at the racetrack, Jeremy, it looks much drier to me. In fact, as we watch Tony Ave run through the banking, it's actually light gray up near the wall, and you would expect that. Obviously, water runs downhill, so it's going to dry up top first. It's also exposed to more of the wind that's there. I think the track is in a better condition, but these drivers have 52 minutes and change on these Michelin rain tires, and as good as they are, they're going to go away. We were talking about this a few minutes ago, and I think that's what a lot of these drivers are having to contend with right now.
I agree. And I think that's why we're not seeing particularly quick lap times at the front of the field. 58.3 last time around for our race leader, Tony's Casimir. 58.7 for Memo Gidley. 2:09, by the way, for Tony Arve, costing 20 seconds, that off-course excursion there, but still in third position and about 7 seconds ahead of George Kurtz now in the fourth place. He and Lance Wilsey continues to close that gap, by the way. It's down to 5 seconds now between the 4 and number 14 of Lance Wilsey. It was over 7 a couple of laps ago, but that was a costly mistake. But I think the cars are sliding around now on these broad Michelin wet weather tires. These are tricky conditions at the moment.
Denise Casimit's now coming up behind John Brownson in the 47. He'll look to the high side to try to go around. Casimit's in a Ligier chassis. That's the Duquesne, the 47. that Brownson's piloting. You can really tell by looking at the nose, the Duquesne chassis, a much more pointy nose box, and the Ligier somewhat rounded in front. But yeah, I think you're right, Jeremy, and a problem for Brownson there, goes a little wide. As I said, the brake bias is going to change, but to kind of give you an idea, imagine having just gravel all over your tires and very worn rubber. You see Kazimit's correcting the steering as he comes off of the International Horseshoe, trying to put the power down. The car feels like it's not on ice. It's a different feeling than it is when it's really wet and you're struggling for grip. Because the lugs are so big, they begin to move around a little bit, and it feels like you're driving on gravel, and you just don't have the confidence anymore, and you don't have the grip, and those two play on each other. And as you said, as the car begins to slide around, as the tire goes away, sliding it just makes it worse because the temperature continues to build. And so you don't want to slide it, so you slow down, but then you're going slow and you think, I've got to go faster. You go faster, it makes the tire worse again. So it really is a double-edged sword.
Very tricky at the moment, because they've still got these cars can probably do with that caution period. They can probably do another 10 or 15 minutes on these tires, and windshield wiper is still running on some of the cars. So there is certainly some spray out there, but I don't think there's any appreciable moisture. So it's just really tricky right now. And as you say, we've got another 10 or 15 minutes to go. They've only done 54 minutes in this race. And the longer you have to go on these well-worn tires, you've just got to be patient, I think, at this stage in the game.
And a lot of times the word patient and race car driver, they're not very close to each other in the dictionary, are they?
That's a good point.
But I think that's what makes the difference. And you and I have spoken a lot about this over the years, and for young aspiring drivers, and really for a lot of things in life, there's a time when patience will get you a lot farther than charging in, and it's one of those things. Championship winning drivers know that this is not a time to be charging in. The first hour of the Rolex 24 is not the time to go throw it away. Neither is the 12th hour, by the way, since you're running for 24. But it's finding that balance between the speed that could be there and the patience to not wear down the equipment if it's not capable of giving it to you. There's some of that spray you talk about, but that was down well along the inside of the racetrack, coming down the back straightaway. That was the number 30 of Ari Balog in that yellow and orange number 30, trying to look around 18, I believe, of Castro, but they got way down to the area of the racetrack where nobody's been running, and you saw that spray pickup, and that's really probably what you want to be doing down that section of the racetrack. It's like he's missing a gear almost.
Yeah, that's bizarre. I mean, they changed positions on the previous lap. Ari Balog got ahead of Efren Castro. Then the order was redressed again. But now once again, Balog goes steaming through on the straight. So whether there's a problem there with number 18 car, I don't know. I think they did have a problem yesterday actually with the transmission on that car, if I remember rightly. Efren Castro will be sharing that kind of 18 with Riley Dickinson, who's a youngster out here.
He was stuck in
third gear yesterday during one of the practice sessions, the second practice session. So I hope that hasn't reared its head again.
Well, it's what I was going to say. It almost looked like he either gave the position back, like maybe they had gotten into each other and race control said, give it back, or more likely from what you're saying, it looked like he went for a gear and it didn't change. Because all of a sudden there was almost the gratuitous gift of, here, have your position back. But now he's right back on song. Let's see when they get up here on the banking, when they're going through the gears, if we see that car stumble again.
Yeah, he's quick through the corners, but now he should be up into top gear. And look at that.
No.
Look at that Ligier stretching away from Duquesne, and I don't think that's the difference between these two cars.
It shouldn't be, and it
here coming down the back straight, isn't it?
And it happens right there as you would expect a shift to the top 2 gears. It's like maybe he doesn't have top gear.
Yeah. But then he had good speed down the back straight toward the bus stop. 177 miles an hour in dry conditions heading down into the bus stop. And there didn't seem from that viewpoint that there was that much difference between the cars. If he was in third gear, he wouldn't be doing 177 miles an hour from Castro, that's for sure.
Closing in to 2 hours to go from Daytona International Speedway. Brian Till, Jeremy Shaw with you. Round 1 of the 2022 IMSA Prototype Challenge Championship. Right now, Tonis Kazmits for Wolver Racing out in front. Memo Gidley, a triumphant return to prototype racing here at Daytona. Qualified on pole, he runs second. Tony Ave in third. He had a little problem early on, cut down tire, then a spin, but has worked his way back up to third. George Kurtz having a spectacular run in fourth. He had been absolutely flying earlier. He and Lance Wilsey, who rounds out the top 5, having great runs here at Daytona, and still 2 hours to go. The only endurance race that we'll see the prototype challenge cars run this season.
Just look at the last time around, Brian. On this lap 28, Tony's Kazmits back up to speed with a 157.6. The last time was a 59.5. I don't know whether he had a mistake or whether he had some issues with traffic out there, but certainly Tony's Kazmits is out in front there in that Wolver Racing. And Wolver Racing, that's for Bruce Hamilton. He has some Scottish heritage, and the Wolver is if you're not familiar, is a humanoid wolf. In Scottish folklore, or reality, but there's another spin for the Steve Scullen car, car number 46.
Thank you for keeping me up on my
Scottish history,
folklore. Scullen, like I said, I think the conditions right now are probably more difficult than they were. He gets out there, touches that white paint on the outside that marks the racing surface from the runoff area, and around it goes. But I think right now, these are the most difficult conditions these drivers have faced. The racetrack is drying. It's going to be a different track every time you come around. Every lap, it's going to feel different as the 6 is in.
Yes. This is the Performance Tech Motorsports entry. And this will be Dan Goldberg getting out of that car number 6. And Oscar Bitar, 29-year-old, from San Juan Bautista in Paraguay. Not many Paraguayan drivers around, are there? Although his manager helper, Danny Candia, also from Paraguay. He made one Indy Lights start about 25 years ago. Good to see him still involved in this sport. And Oscar, he's a former rally champion in native Paraguay and indeed in South America. Two-time South American rally champion. He should love these conditions.
77 in as well. I had to laugh. You said an Indy Light start 25 years ago, and I thought, man, that's a long time. And I realized my last Indy Light start was, well, it was more than 25 years ago, Jeremy.
Exactly.
I hate doing math.
I figured I'd leave that one to you.
Yeah, I hate doing math. Our producer said he has some black and white footage of the last Indy Lights race I did. Where's the love, you know? For Tony Ave, now coming down pit lane, looking for his pit box, will pit out of the 3rd position. It'll be interesting to see when the 60 and the 23 come, the 1st and 2nd place cars. Ave now to the marks, and 1 minute 115 seconds, I should say, is the minimum pit stop time. From the time you cross the line at pit in until you go through the readers at pit out is 115 seconds, 115 seconds. It can't be shorter than that. If you do, you will get a penalty. You'll have to come in and stop for the period of time that you were short. So if you were a second short, you'll have to come to pit lane, sit for 1 second, and then you can go. So that's more than a second penalty, because a drop down pit lane is brutal here at Daytona.
Yeah, it is, and so you certainly don't want to be doing that. Hannah Zeller's there taking over the second of the Ave cars, which is behind on the pit lane. Hannah Zeller's taking over from George Stakos. They're going to have to pull that car back in order for her to get around Tony Arve get back into the race, because I think he came in first. Seikos came in first, so it would be Hannes Zellers who leaves before Tony Arve. And I would think it's an hour and 2 minutes into this race. There's an off for our rally champion on his out lap here.
Man,
They're down very well.
The question is, what kind of tires are going on?
Well, exactly. What kind of tires are going on? We couldn't quite see, could we? At least I couldn't from that camera angle. Quite close to. Whoops.
The cheese wedge.
But you're talking timing of pit stops. If you can stay out, I would say do so. We're only just over an hour into the race, so you really want to try and stay out as long as you can, just to give yourself a wider window in terms of the fuel consumption. Because as I say, if the track does dry out, continue to dry out, and becomes a slick tired track, you're going to struggle to do an hour. And right now we've got an hour and 55 minutes remaining in this race. So I would say if you can stay, if you're turning good lap times right now, stay out for another 2 or 3 laps at least. Kind of a more opportunity as to when you make your next stop, and then ultimately your last stop.
I would agree. And for Oscar Bitar, we saw that cheese wedge, as we call it, come off. That's the least of his as he drove by. We saw the contact that he had when he went off the racetrack. The rear wing isn't even close to being in the right position, so that's going to be a significant problem for him. And for the new drivers right now, I almost might rethink what I was doing. As you see Tony Kazmet's down on the line, I think he's looking for moisture to keep those rain tires somewhat cool, trying to keep them cool on the racetrack right now as they're going away. But I almost might rethink putting another driver in right now. I mean, with the conditions the way they are, I might leave the driver in who's in as Memo Gidley comes to pit lane, because they're going to know it. I know that throws off your whole strategy, but they know what the racetrack's like. That's what we saw. Bitar, when he went out there, had no idea what he was facing, and off he went.
If you have drivers of similar pace, yes.
Yeah,
But here is Memo Gidley, that a second place car is on pit lane. Tony Kazmet, he is a good bit quicker than Bruce Hamilton, so he's going to stay out as long as he possibly can. And Tony will take over for the final stint of this race after Bruce does his hour. So he's going to try and extend that lead before he hands over the World Racing entry. Meanwhile, Memo Gidley for the AL Motorsports slash JDC Motorsports entry is into the pits right now, and it's Alex Damalas, who is the Texas businessman, who's the AL Autosport entry. He's going to be sharing this car with Alexander Carribert for most of the season, but he has such limited racing experience, he wasn't able to get an IMSA license for this event. That's why Memo Gidley was called in. But now young Alex Carribert, just 24 years of age, from Branson, Missouri. He's another guy who's worked super hard to get to where he is right now. He started out, did a fair bit of karting, then went to the Lucas Oil School of Racing here in Florida, and came up through their ranks, and he's been working hard for the last 3 or 4 years to give himself an opportunity to move into the professional ranks. This is Alexander's first ever professional race.
See the racetrack drawing
for Memo Gidley, right?
Exactly. You can, as we were talking about the racetrack drawing, Tony Kazmet will head to pit lane this time, and I cannot tell what kind of tires are going on. I looked as closely as I could, but I couldn't tell if they were slicks or rain tires there. But Kazmet will now head to pit lane. You were talking about Carribert. I was so impressed. He was within a half a second or so of Gidley's lap times in the dry, and that's impressive for a driver who's never been to Daytona before and is new to these LMP3 based machineries. As Kazmet to the stop.
So 32 laps completed by Tony Kazmet. He brings that Wilver Racing car onto the pit lane, and I think he's already out of the car, and Bruce waiting to get in there. Those are
Reigns.
Yeah, they are Reigns, aren't they? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you're going to keep them. You can see the grooves in the blocks that Michelin has designed to shed the water, and also they're not as blocky as they used to be back in the day, Jeremy, with some of the rain tires that you and I ran. So in those mid conditions, they're going to be a little bit better. but they're still a softer compound, and they will go away once they come off. In fact, you look at that tire that Tony Cazamet's had, and you can tell you don't see near the depth of blocks anymore on that tire that just came off the car versus the one that was going on.
Yeah, it's a tough call right now. I think it'll be interesting to see if we'll see once the cars get out there for a few laps, what sort of lap times they're turning. That'll give us an indication of what tires are on, I think, because if it is dry enough for slicks, then you certainly want to be on slick tires because they will be appreciably faster. But the tricky bit is getting those tires up to their optimal working temperature. It's not particularly warm here in Florida today, and with the damp conditions, it's difficult, a lot more difficult than usual to build the heat, the all-important heat in tires.
Well, and that's the thing. It's not just about the heat, it's about the pressure, and the pressure comes with the heat. You need to get the energy in the tire, and that begins to generate pressure and heat. You want the heat so that the compound works the way it should. You want the pressure so that the spring rate of the sidewall of the tire is performing the way it should. And you need the two of them, and it takes the heat to get the pressure. And once the pressure comes up, you can get more heat. So it's really kind of a two-edged sword. And as you said, difficult to do in these conditions. By the way, you gave me absolutely no love on the black and white video of my last Indy Lights race, as my producer obviously didn't either. I just want you to know, Bo Barfield just sent me a text and said, I thought the same way as you. My last Indy Lights race was 27 years ago. So Bo is now old, obviously. I never thought I would think of my friend Bo Barfield as being old, but they have, I understand they have color videos of Bo's last Indy Lights race, but they're all on Betamax tape, so nobody can play them.
So there is Bruce Hamilton back out onto the racetrack, and he's still leading. When he came into the pits, well, when Memo Gidley pitted in car number 23, the gap between the number 60 car and number 23 was 10 seconds, and we'll see what the gap is when they come around here to complete this next lap. It'll be lap 33 for our race leader. I think everybody now has made a pit stop. So 69 minutes was that first stint for Tony Cazamet. And Bruce Hamilton getting up to speed in this World Racing car. This is, of course, a new car from last year. They ran in the P32 category, which is the older specification LMP3 cars last year. We're getting a new car this year, new Ligier JS P320. JS for Ligiers, by the way, relates to Joe Schlesser, who's a very famous French driver. Ligier, of course, a French company, and carrying the legacy of Joe Schlesser on all of their cars, with open wheel or closed wheel cars. So Bruce Hamilton then leads the race. In second place at the moment is Alexander Carribert in car number 23, having taken over from Memo Gidley.
Now it's going to be interesting here in these next several laps, Jeremy, because when you look through the leaderboard right now and you go back to David Grant, he's pitted as well, but if my memory serves me correctly, and I can never really count on that all too much, David is the starting driver in the 40. George Kurtz was the starting driver in the 4. They know what the racetrack's like. They know what they've got. Bruce Hamilton does not. Alex Carribert does not. So it's one of those deals where when you look through it, David Grant being shown in 4th knows what he's got. Courtney Crone in 5th, she doesn't. So for those two drivers, Grant and Kurtz, I would expect to see lap times for them considerably quicker than the others, at least for a couple of laps, until the other drivers can learn the track and where there is grip and where there isn't. You saw the 43 on pit lane, Stephen McAleer taking over there, the Robillard Racing entry, and the 15 as well.
Yeah, and the number 6 car, by the way, we saw Oscar Bitar off the road. Unfortunately, that car has been retired back to the garage, and suspension and underwing damage too much to fix in the time allotted in this race. So that number 6 car, unfortunately, Performance Tech Motorsports, has been retired.
And that's bad news for Dan Goldberg if he's in this for a championship, because that's going to significantly affect his starting ground without getting good points from here. And remember, this is a 5-race championship this year. Last year was 6. You don't have as much time to make up for errors. If you're in it to win it at the end, you really need to think about trying to gather up as many points as you go, because you don't get a lot of swings at the plate. So you need to make sure you're collecting those points as you go. The 60, Bruce Hamilton still out in front, Alex Carribert in the 23 in second. And we were talking about Carribert at the Lucas School. I think he learned so much there, went through their shootout program, ran their race series. You talked about being from Branson, Missouri. He's from an entertainment family. His mom and dad actually have a gospel show there. He is an entertainer himself. And so he's very confident. You know, he's got that entertainer type confidence. And I don't mean in a bad way, in a good way. You know, he believes in himself and he believes that he can do this. And I saw that yesterday in the practice and qualifying sessions, or in the practice sessions, I should say. I was really impressed with the pace that he could show. And you and I talked about it a little bit yesterday. It wasn't just the pace. What impresses me is when a driver, when you watch their lap chart and they're coming down on times, if they can continue to do that, not if they just kind of get lucky and find a lap and scare themselves and then slow back down again, but methodically and logically just ticking away and coming down the lap chart and the lap times, I should say. And that's exactly what Carribert did yesterday. It was very, very impressive to watch him. And if he can continue to do that in his career, and if he can find proper funding to move him along the way, he's going to be good.
Indeed so. And yeah, that's certainly the plan. As you say, you know, he's his first ever professional race, so he's got an awful lot to learn. But he's going to give it his best shot. And there's a pit stop for Riley Dickinson. I think this is a drive-through penalty, is it not, for car number 18? Because referee Castro had already been into the pits.
Oh, he's got a problem.
Oh, is he going to go to slick tires, I wonder?
Or is he? Are those slicks?
Are those slicks?
Big push with the camera there.
Yes,
they are indeed. So
yeah.
There's your first taker, and that's not surprising. Riley Dickinson, a lot of experience, super fast in the One Make Series, Porsche Carrera Cup last year, GT3 Cup the years before, and a future champion for sure, I think, in sports car racing. So he's got the experience, and he's saying right now, guys, I can do this. Give me the slicks, because I think that's where we want to be. So
yeah. And I think probably that Seb Prio is also on slicks. He's just had the fastest lap of the race. Pretty much his first or second flying lap, a 154.3 for Seb Prio in car number 14. He's taken over from Lance Wilsey, who's in the 5th position right now. It's still Bruce Hamilton who leads, heading on to the banking, NASCAR banking in turn 1-2. But Carribert now is only less than 5 seconds behind him. George Kurtz is only 10 seconds behind Carribert. David Grant is a fair way back in 4th position, and then it's Seb Prio who is charging right now. And last time around he was more than a second quicker than Carribert. I fancy we'll have to try and find out what tires Carribert is on as well. I fancy he may well be on slick tires.
he was 7 seconds faster than Bruce Hamilton, Carribert was, and so he is clawing down on him. Interesting, the driver strategies and the lineups. I would think that Memo Gidley will get back in the 23 after Alex Carribert does his minimum drive time. I would think Sebastian Prio, Riley Dickinson are into the end there, and I would think that we would see Tony Kazimitz back behind the wheel of the 60 once Bruce Hamilton does his. So different strategies as far as whether you're going to change drivers twice or once. It's going to be interesting, Jeremy. An hour and 42 minutes to go, and the racetrack changing every lap.
It is going to be very, very interesting, and I think, as Carribert now goes through into the lead of this race, 153. That's the new fastest lap of the race there for Alex Carribert, coming out of the the West Horseshoe there. He's struggling to put the power down. Carribert, with those slick tires, able to get a much better drive off the corner and easily ahead even before the braking area for turn 6. Our new race leader then, car number 23, is into the lead of this race, and he's just the fastest lap of the race, a 1:53.021.
We talk about the racetrack drying. He's probably on slicks, and that seems to be the way to go right now. But that sentence that you just said, I guarantee you, is going to be clipped out of this show, and it's going to be playing at his house. I'm sure his family thrilled right now to hear you, Jeremy Shaw, say Alex Carribert into the lead with a new fastest lap. That's something that he'll remember for a long time. First professional race at a place like Daytona International Speedway. That's daunting enough, and he takes the lead and sets fast lap.
Yeah, so Seb Prier was just brought number 14 car into pit lane, so I have to assume that he was not on slick tires, that he was on wet, brand new set of wet tires. Yeah, that'd be quick initially here, but then you'll be losing time. Okay, look, here is
Carribert.
They must have all gone out on wet weather tires then, and now they're figuring out that slicks is the way to go.
Interesting to see. He's like, hey, I just got the lead. Do I really need to come in? But I'm surprised he was able to, well, I mean, the racetrack's getting better.
Yeah, and it's always got, you know, a fresh set of slick tire, of even wet weather tires is certainly going to be good initially.
Well, that's what I was going to say. They were brand new, so I'm sure they were. Oh, that was a drive-through penalty.
Oh, it was, wasn't it? Oops.
So car 40 is going to have a short pit stop. With a stop plus 8 seconds, it was really, really short. That's at the bottom of the screen. I did not see the note.
It was
on the 23.
More than a permitted number of people over the pit wall. Drive-through penalty for car number 23.
Oh, wow. And this one's going to hurt for the 40. They're going to have to stop and sit for 8 seconds in the penalty box. And then they can move back onto the racetrack. See the official holding them there at the penalty box, and then the car is released, but that's going to hurt for David Grant. And Alex Carribert, what is he thinking?
Yeah, that was a miscue there. I mean, a surprising miscue, certainly for a team that's experienced with JDC Motorsports. It's the AL Autosport with JDC, but it's JDC that's running that car. And a huge amount of experience on that pit wall. So very surprising to see that they would be penalized for something as kind of elementary as that.
Yeah, you know,
shuffle things around a bit, isn't it?
A rule's a rule, right? And yeah, it does indeed shuffle things around. So the 60s back up front, at least the last time by. We'll have to wait and see how it settles down as they come back across the line. Now things are beginning to move. Kurtz being shown in second now. And look at this up front. Bruce Hamilton trying to hold off the red and black number 4. He cannot do it. Kurtz is through. And Kurtz is your new leader. He's in the middle of traffic, though. He's going to have to get by a couple of lap cars, but he's just been on rails ever since he's gotten in the car. We talked about how strong he was. Who is that right behind him that seems to have such a good drive?
It's Riley Dickinson in car 18 for Mueller. Yes, but he is 2 laps down to our racer. He's trying to get back up, trying to get back to be just 1 lap behind is Riley Dickinson in car number 18 in the 15th position.
And this is where George Kurtz's crew needs to really let him know, hey, he's coming and it's okay. It's okay. He'll still be a lap down. Do not risk anything by keeping him back there. And Dickinson having to go the high side. The car wiggles out of 6th as they get to the banking, and that's going to cost him. But remember, well, that was a different car, but I mean, Kurtz just streaks away as he has a problem getting the power down. And what a great drive for George Kurtz.
Yeah, back in he was into the lead of this race then for the first time. George Kurtz, the first time he's led a IPC race, which is his first start in the IPC. That's why. Both John Bennett, his co-driver, he hasn't raced an LMP3 car in this series before, but he has raced in a prototype challenge way back in 2009, when John Bennett made his debut. He's now the Inter Prototype Challenge. He had a couple of second place finishes way back then. That was before he moved on up into WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, well, at ALMS as it was in those days.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's interesting about the pairing of Kurtz and Bennett, they're the same age, same type individuals as far as personalities, their business acumen goes and all that. They share a co-driver in Colin Brown, because Colin has driven with George and several other series, obviously a longtime co-driver with John Bennett, and so having them in the same car at the 24 is nothing new. They won Sebring together last year in the LMP3 category, so a lot of similarities there. And right now, Dickinson quick, but not quick enough.
No, I mean, George is doing a fantastic job in there. Did we see that car, what tyres it was on? I think it's probably on wet weather tyres, as George Kurtz. So, you know, it's the fastest lap of the race has been set by Danny Formalin, actually, currently car number 46, currently a lap down. There is Dario Cangialosi making a move there on Courtney Crone, the second of the female drivers in this race, Courtney Crone and Hannah Zellers, who's down now in the 16th position. Courtney Crone running 6th.
There are a lot of people in the paddock expecting big things out of Courtney Crone. She enters her second full season of Prototype Challenge, and everybody says she's got the talent. She just needs a little bit more experience and some consistency within the car, and she'll be right there. But that was a good move by Cangialosi to get by. He picks up a position. Crone slips back to 6th, and the 47 up into the top 5. Carribert still holding down the 3rd position. It's interesting, I think, you know, there's been such light shown on this car, not only for the job that Carribert's doing right now, but obviously for Memo Gidley, like we were talking about earlier. And I got a text from Anthony Lazaro just a little bit ago, and he said his first stint in the 2014 Rolex 24 was right after Memo's crash, and he said, so happy to see him back. He said, a little factoid, when Memo and I raced Atlantics together, my daughter, Ansley, now 27, her favorite driver was Memo, even though if we won, I took my kids to Toys R Us and they got a toy, but she still thought Memo was her favorite driver. So yeah, shows you that family ties aren't always as strong, and shows you what a personality he is. Wonder if his daughter still likes Memo better than Dad. I don't know, but have to ask Anthony.
Yeah, now it's Riley Dickinson trying to get that lap back from George Kurtz. And you know, he's just got to be patient at this stage in the game as Riley. The track is drying out, so he is going to get the advantage sooner or later as he moves alongside through NASCAR 1 and 2. He's going to be able to maintain that edge onto all the way down the back straight. No, indeed, he's not.
No.
Car, the Ligier, is very, very fast on a straight line. This is, you talked about earlier on, Brian, the Norma used to be significantly quicker than the Ligier on the straights. It's second generation LMP3 car, however, the boot seems to be on the other foot, and George Kurtz taking full advantage of that right there. But Ryan Dickinson in that number 18 car is still 2 laps down to our race leader.
Well, it's interesting when you talk about the different chassis. One of the things I noticed is that the Duquesne was very quick in sector 1, which goes all the way from start finish to turn 6. That's the infield portion of the track. And I don't know if a lot of the Duquesne teams are saying, hey, we've got a car that's pretty slick, so let's stack some downforce in, especially in the wet weather conditions that we had at the start of the race. Did they decide to run a little bit more downforce to get the car through the tighter sections of the infield? And now as the track's drying out, is that coming back to bite them a little bit? Because sector 2 and 3, really kind of all weekend long, we've seen the Ligiers with good speed there, and the Duquesne's a little bit quicker in the infield. So perhaps just trying to find that balance aerodynamically in the Duquesne right now, because it is surprising. I would expect them to see them a little quicker in a straight line.
Yeah, very interesting indeed to see that much discrepancy. We see a whole bunch, just about everybody set their fastest lap on that last lap. The only two cars in the top 16 that did not are the third and fourth place cars. Third is Bruce Hamilton, who is certainly going to be struggling on these wet weather times. We know he's on wets. Patrick Kužela in the fourth position also did not set his best lap, but it was a 1:55. And he now does improve as he comes across the line to complete lap 41 into the 54s now. But the fastest lap of the race is going back and forth between Danny Formal, who set it on the two previous laps, and now Seb Prio, who's ahead of him. Prio is running in ninth position, one lap down in car number 14. Danny Formal is about 20 seconds behind him in car number 46. Those two are the fastest cars on the track by an appreciable margin.
And I would expect to see that. I would expect with slicks to see these cars down into the 40s. As you watch Alexander Carribert through the banking, you can see how light the pavement color is there. And that's telling you it's pretty much dry. There's still a little darkness to it in places, but for all intents and purposes, it's dry. And now with the moisture moving out of the area and the air being a little bit drier, the track is just going to continue to, I would say, pretty rapidly begin to dry out. We don't have sun and we don't have high temperatures, but with the cars moving over the racetrack at speed, I would expect to see that track condition improve greatly.
Yeah, now here's the championship winning car from last year onto the pit lane again. Dakota Dickinson, Dickinson is Riley. He's running ahead of him now on the road, because clearly Dakota was on the wet weather tires. He needs to come in for slicks, so that's he was already one lap down, so it's not looking good at the moment for this LMLT car. But we are almost exactly halfway through now this race. We are indeed halfway through this race, and we have a new race leader. Alex Carribert has just got back past George Kurtz, back into the lead of the race.
So the 23 Carribert and the white and black just gets the power down off the International Horseshoe better than George Kurtz does, and just rockets away. It's almost like Kurtz got some wheel spin, maybe the traction control not really doing what he wanted it to do, or was out there forced out onto an area of the racetrack that just didn't have the grip, could not get the power down, and now is dropping rapidly back in just a matter of a lap and a half or so.
Yeah. So Carribert doing a nice job here in the lead of this race. There's another pit stop for Patrick Kužela, the US Racetronics car number 77. He was running very nicely there in the fourth position, but losing ground. It looks like slicks for that car as well.
I think if you're Alexander Carribert, you measure yourself against known commodities. Obviously, you've got a teammate who is a known commodity, but I would measure myself with the laps of drivers like Seb Prio right now, Danny Formal, because those are the more experienced drivers. Formal last time by was at a 49.3. Prio's last lap by was a 48.7, and Carribert's was a 49.1. So he's right there with those guys that he wants to aspire to be like. And I think for his team on the radio right now, what they need to do is praise him for the job that he's doing, but keep the reins still relatively short. You let him go do what he's doing. Don't pump him up too much. Don't get on him when he makes mistakes. Let him go do what he's doing. You don't want to get in his head. He's doing a good job right now. Be careful with the information that you give him and just let him go.
Yeah, he's just doing his best lap of the race of 149.12 there for Alexander Carribert last time around. He's just put a lap on the 7th place car of Ari Baylog as well. So he's doing exactly what is required of him at this stage in the proceedings.
Still don't think the 54 is quite right. You see Dakota Dickerson not able to keep the pace, and obviously there was damage done to that car. Some of it has been able to be repaired. The 54 second car into the International Horseshoe. Remember, the end plate was missing off of the rear wing on the right side. It looks like they've put a new rear wing on it. They've gotten the under tray kind of held up a little bit, but missing bodywork on the right rear. And those lips, that you see on the left side, it's even the left side's not supported as it should, and that doesn't allow the air to travel over the rear bodywork and create the downforce that it normally would. The cheese wedges, as we call them, that sit there behind the rear wheels. You can see it on the Ligier chassis just in front. They're not there on the 54. All of that will create a lack of downforce and perhaps even some turbulence at the back of the 54. He's not going to have the car that he really wants. You can see the difference in the two cars there as they head around the banking, and Dakota Dickerson's just going to have to feel this out as the track comes to him. It's not going to be ideal, but you make the best of what you have. It's how they won the championship last year, Jeremy. So you make the best of what you've got, and if there's a problem, you do the best that you can to overcome it. You take those points and move forward. They would love to win this race. Don't think that we'll see the 54 run the entire series in Prototype Challenge. We think that we'll see him at a couple other races. And like I said, I expect to see him at a few sprint races in the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship in the LMP3 category. But you look at the experience of Dakota Dickerson. In the last 4 years, he's won 3 championships. He's won a US F4 championship, an F3 championship at the time as it was known, and he's won the Prototype Challenge championship last year. He knows how to get the job done, and he'll work to figure out what he's got, and he'll do the best he can with what he has. And he won't press it beyond that and make a mistake trying to do something that the car won't allow him to do.
That's the name of the game, isn't it? Don't push too hard. There's a pit stop for the number 40. That car was has been running in the 6th position. Looks like the Grant brothers are changing over there, and it'll be David who started, wasn't it? So Keith to finish this race. So right now that I reckon probably leaves just 5 cars on the lead lap, with in the 6th position now will be the number 30 of Ori Balog, who is the only driver going solo in this race. The last 2 lap times, by the way, by our race leader were within 1/1000th of a second. 49.12, 49.13 the previous lap. This one is a 48.3, but really good, consistent lap times at the front of the field for, so quicker, good bit quicker on this lap then for the race leader, Alex Carribert. Really nice job he is doing. Oops,
now
that's Riley Dickinson, isn't it?
Yeah, remember we saw that speed disparity, and I wonder if we've got a problem. Well, you do have a problem for the 61. I don't have to wonder about that at all, trying to get that car turned back around. Hannah Zeller in the 61. And the crew going to work there. Not been the trouble-free weekend that we're used to seeing Mueller Motorsports America have. Problems for the 21. We talked about that at the beginning of the race, that they're not in the event, even though they practiced and they went out to qualify, but then had some mechanical problems. The car was not going to be able to be repaired to run today. So that took them down to 2 cars, and now a problem here for the 18. They also have a car in the Rolex 24 next weekend. So it's running here at the Roar all weekend in WeatherTech practice. And this is not the day that they wanted to have, as Riley Dickinson sits behind the wheel there in the 18 stationary on pit lane.
Yeah, that certainly is disappointing. We're watching the 5th place car of Courtney Crone under pressure here from Dakota Dickerson. A couple of Californians there. Dakota are now with those slick tires on that MLT car, trying to make this is not a battle for position, because number 54 car is now 3 laps down to our race leader with those extra stops.
1 hour and 22 minutes to go in round 1 of IMSA Prototype Challenge from Daytona International Speedway, a 3-hour event here this weekend. And the series will return to 1 hour and 45-minute sprints for the remaining 4 races of the championship this season. And man, what challenges have been thrown at these drivers so far. You think about the conditions that we had at the beginning of the race, Jeremy, versus what we've got right now, just slightly damp conditions, but everybody, I believe, has gone to slicks. It's definitely what you want to be on. And by the end of the race, I would expect everything to be completely dry and the racetrack to be very quick. In fact, when you look at the lap times being turned right now, fastest race lap by Seb Prio at a 46.9, you're just 3 seconds or so off what we expect them to run at race pace. So the track coming in really well. What's important for these drivers is that they get the car balanced, they get that brake bias balance. As the racetrack changes, you're going to need to continually chase it with the adjustments in the cockpit.
Yeah, and you know, for the conditions have changed dramatically during this race. It is now pretty much we're still 4 or 5 seconds away from dry weather tires. However, that fastest lap by Seb Prio, 146.9. The pole time yesterday by Gideon was 144.1. We've seen cars down into 43s in practice yesterday, so it's still, you know, it's still pretty slippery out there. It certainly isn't optimal conditions right now. We're looking at Ari Balog, who's running in the 7th position. He's just lost a position to Seb Prio, who's up into 6th, but still a lap down to our race leader.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, when you think about the pace that Prio is running right now, everybody's going to have to make another stop. We know that. It'll be interesting to see if he can chase down, if he's quick enough and located on the racetrack close enough to chase down Alexander Carribert, get his lap back, and at that point in time on, it's a brand new ball game. Problem for the 57.
Well, that car's, at least, well, the good news is the car is back out again. And he's quite a few laps too. It's on 31 laps now, but that's, I presume that's Josh. Yeah, that's Josh, whose son at the wheel of that car, but he's off the road as well. Is this going to bring out another full course caution, I wonder?
Yeah, if he can't get it out of there, and the problem is if he's on slick tires, he's in that grass, and the tire bundle that's kind of on top of that left splitter is going to create some issue. He's not going to have grip with the slick tires on the wet grass to back it out. We may have to go full course caution.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a shame, certainly for Alexander Carribert.
Oh, look!
What are you going here? Well done. Good job by Joshua. And going to try and get it back onto the asphalt. But first things first, at least he's got it out of the tires, and hopefully there's enough grip there to get that car into first gear and move on, get back onto the racetrack without being the full score caution. We've only got 5 cars on the lead lap at the moment, and they are well spaced out. Minimum of 15 seconds between each of those cars.
Great job to get the car back on the track, and the good thing is it doesn't look like he picked up any grass. There's no damage to the splitter there on the left front, so he should have a car that he can work with. He just needs to get out there and learn the racetrack and get experience. You see iRacing logo on the side of it. Talking to the engineer on this car, John Bobbitt, saying they've used it a lot, not only to help these drivers learn tracks that they've not driven on, but to help them with pit stops, which they're not used to doing. And the virtual world it's here. I mean, there's no denying it, and there hadn't been for the last several years, as almost every driver that I know has a sim rig in their house, and some of them even have them here at the racetrack, and they spend a lot of time on simulators. And there's another example of teams even at the lower ladder of professional sports using that technology to help. And I think a lot of drivers do, whether that's in club racing or pro racing here, you take advantage of any type of simulation that you can. We used to think of them as, quote, video games, and that's just not the case anymore. Carribert still up front, George Kurtz in second, and then the 60 of Bruce Hamilton with 1 hour and 17 minutes to go.
Extending his lead pretty rapidly too is Alexander Carribert at the front. 149.9 last time around for our race leader. George Kurtz in second place, 156.1. So almost 7 seconds, or just over 6 seconds in fact, between first and second. That gap now is out to almost 50 seconds between first and second. Bruce Hamilton did a super job to hang on to third position in that kind of a 60. The Volvo Racing Ligier, his best lap. We know he's on wets as well. We think George Kurtz also is on wets. 159 for Bruce Hamilton. That's the same sort of lap times that Tony's Kazimierz was turning a little bit slower before their pit stop. And then in fourth position to car number 47, that's Dario Cangialosi, who's doing a nice job and closing quite rapidly now on Bruce Hamilton, trying to take over that fourth position. The only other car on the lead lap right now is Courtney Crone, I believe, in car number 3, but she is being caught by Seb Prio. On the racetrack.
Patrick Caggiula just sets a new fast lap. Well, that was now taken away by Dakota Dickerson. So I'm thinking that the 54 must be running okay. The track is certainly coming to him. Dakota just sets the fast lap. I expect that to change almost every lap here over the next 10, 15 minutes or so until we get to a completely dry racetrack. There's a look at Seb Prio trying to catch up to Alex Carribert and get his lap back. If he can do that and get a full course caution, the 14 is back in the game.
Yeah, and I think but Courtney Crone has been lapped here, has been lapped by the race leader. Here comes though Seb Prio down the inside quite cleanly, very easily there, makes the pass for that 5th position into the East Horseshoe turn 3. And Seb Prio there on his way. Still a lap down to Alex Carribert, who's a fair way ahead of him on the racetrack, but he's turning a lot quicker laps. Last time around was a 156.5 for Seb Prio. Alex Carribert, in contrast, that last lap was a bit slower, 151.2.
It's interesting that the lap time is there if you can get a clean lap. And what I mean by that is not just traffic, but it's what portion of the racetrack the traffic gives you, because obviously the racetrack is fast if you can run on the dry portion of the track right now. But I think what we're seeing with these variations in lap times, as you were just talking about Seb Prio, it was a 46 and then several seconds slower, and Alex Carribert the same thing. When you go around somebody and you've got to venture onto the damp sections of the racetrack, you can lose 2 or 3 seconds easily on a lap if you get placed in one of those areas where you just don't have grip. As long as you're running alone, or as long as the traffic gives you that light gray pavement to work with, you don't suffer much. But some of these passes are really, really going to slow those leaders down as they're trying to work through lap traffic. You look there in the International Horseshoe, you can see how dark the pavement is there in the middle of the racetrack as you come off the corner where the cars pick up more speed. The racetrack gets a little drier. The battle for third, the 60, Bruce Hamilton and Cangialosi easily by under braking, gets that done and now sets sail, seeing if he can move forward. So the 47 now up to third.
Indeed, so these are the last 2 cars on the lead lap in the 3rd and 4th positions. They're a long way behind our race leader, who now leads by 52 seconds last time around, the gap between Carribert and Kurtz, 1st and 2nd, and Bruce Hamilton another 37 seconds back in that 3rd position. Last time across the line before he was overtaken by the youngster Dario Cangialosi.
It's going to be interesting. You look at the lead that Carribert has right now, and I've been around the sport long enough to know you never forecast the end of a race. I don't care if it's a lap away from the checkered flag. You certainly don't do it an hour and 12 minutes away. Seb Prio could still factor into this as he flashes out of the bus stop in the number 14 Sean Creech Motorsports entry Ligier that he shares with Lance Wilsey. But just kind of looking forward to saying, what if? I mean, and I think my answer to what if the 23 ended up in victory lane, it shows you that anything is possible when you think about the 2 drivers that would be in that car if it ended up taking the checkered flag first here this weekend. One, their first professional race. The second, in Memo Gidley, a driver who returned to Daytona for the first time in a prototype since the crash in 2014 that could easily have ended his career and could also have taken his life. That just shows you that anything is indeed possible if they were to end up there. Still a long way to go, and I'm not handing anybody a trophy yet, But just some really magical stories and some great racing from Daytona this weekend.
Yeah, there really is. And Alexander Carribert there in that lead car, the AL Motorsport with JDC Motorsports entry at Ligier JS3 P320, who is, he's got Seb Priaulx now closing
this
in
is big
behind him, but Carribert's just set his best lap of the race, a 1:48.245 last time around, a lap time for the what is the fifth place car, but that lap down 1:46.3 for Priaulx.
This is really big. This is huge. If Priaulx can get by, a yellow will bring him right back into the fight. He'll be back on the lead lap. He'll be back around when they stack up the field if there's a full course caution. And Priaulx certainly showing good pace. Expect to see him in the seat until the checkered flag. And we may very well, I would expect to see Memo Gidley back behind the wheel of the 23 before the end of the race. We'll have to wait and see if that's the strategy there at the 23 and JDC Motorsports. But right now, Alexander Carribert has a mirror full of Seb Priaulx. And this is what I was saying earlier. This is how you measure yourself against these people. The other thing you do is you don't make a mistake. You don't let that pressure of that car getting back on the lead lap create a problem right here when you're about to try to get by other competitors and stay out in front. Don't get caught up in making an emotional decision and make a mistake. Drive your car the way you've been doing it. You've been doing a great job. Stay focused forward.
Wow, that's a good lap for Carribert, 1:46.38. So that's almost 2 seconds quicker than his previous lap, which had been his fastest. So he's really stepping it up, isn't he? I think he's, he wants to try and keep number 14 car lap down if he possibly can. If there's a full course caution, then at this stage of the game, then if he can keep that number 14 car behind him, that would make things look even better for the closing stages of this race, because the safety car, if it is required, would come out between them, and Carribert would go on to have a pretty well, he would have a full lap lead. I mean, it wouldn't make any difference, but it would make a big difference if number 14 car can get past, let me put it that way.
Absolutely. And Seb Priaulx knows what's at stake too. He's the 2021 Porsche Carrera Cup North America Championship. He had 6 wins, 7 podiums, and 16 starts to take that championship. And he was absolutely magic in the second half of the season. He knows what patience is. He needs to get by. He needs to get back on the lead lap so that if they do get that caution, he's back in the hunt. But he also knows that he's got an hour and 8 minutes left to go, so he's got to be careful about how that gets done. And for Alexander Carribert leading right now, as you said, I think the pressure from behind is actually kind of pushing him forward. Yes, the racetrack's getting better, but again, right now, in this type of situation where the traffic is there in front of you, make sure that you make good, measured choices as he tries to get by the 47.
This is pretty cool at this stage. There goes the race leader past. It's not a lap car, isn't it?
I believe it's the 47. And if that's the case, that's Cangialosi in third.
Yeah, you're right. He let that go rather easily, didn't he? Yes, he did. Wow.
Yeah, he did.
That was strange. I would have thought he would have wanted to try and stay on the lead lap, but then I also think that that car is on wet weather tyres, because he's not turning laps anywhere near the times of the race leader. So I fancy that number 47 car, like the number 60, is still on wet weather tyres. Dario's last lap was actually only a couple of tenths off his best lap at a 1:52.4. So 5-6 seconds away from these other leaders. And Dario, we know, is a talented youngster. He's just 21 years of age. From New Jersey. He's a former champion in the F1600 Championship Series a few years ago, 2018. He won that championship. Last season, he and John Brownson, with whom he's sharing 47 Motorsports Chicane, they got the opportunity to go race in Europe in the Michelin Le Mans Cup. So he's got a huge amount, a lot of experience in these cars now, Dario. And I'm sure he was just wanting to stay out of the way there. He's got a good, solid top 5 position at the moment, even with losing that position.
I think for Cangialosi as well, it's one of those deals where there's nothing they can do for him. There's nothing they can do. There's an hour and 6 minutes to go. And it's one of those things where he's going to need to get to about 55 minutes to go before they can make it on just one more stop. So he's got to just deal with the hand that he's been dealt and see if they can perhaps find a way to fight back after they make that last stop.
My hat's off to Alexander Carribert. I mean, his last few laps, he did a 48.2. That was his best lap of the race on lap 52. Following lap from 48.2 to 46.3, then a 46.4, now a 46.4 again this last time around. That is stepping up to the plate, Alexander Carribert. Nice job, well done. And he's actually edged away a little bit now from Seb Priaulx, who's just turned his best lap of the race, a 46.3 for Seb Priaulx. The fastest lap, by the way, has now gone back to Dakota Dickerson, who is at least a couple of laps down in that kind of a 54, running in the 12th position.
Round 1 of the 2022 IMSA Prototype Challenge Championship from Daytona International Speedway. Great stories in this 3-hour race, 1 hour and 5 minutes to go. And a rookie, first professional race for Alexander Carribert. He leads at the World Center of Racing.
Yeah.
Across the line one more time, sharing that car with former IndyCar driver Mimo Gidley, making his return to Daytona and prototype racing. Just great stories all around. And Jeremy, you were talking about it. Alexander Carribert has been so impressive in this performance. I was talking earlier about I was impressed with his consistency in practice. You just touched on it. It's been the same here in this race. He's got pressure from behind. The red, white, and blue liveried number 14 of Seb Priaulx, putting the pressure on. This is not for position, but it would allow Priaulx to get back on the lead lap, and that could be very important if we get a full course caution.
New best lap of the race there for both of these two. 45.5 for Carribert, 45.3 though for Seb Priaulx. Really good stuff. I'm really impressed by this young man. And I said before, he's a hard worker. You talked about it as well, Brian. He's a hard worker. He's got, he talks the talk. Now he's walking the walk.
Priaulx, I think his way by is going to be trying to find a way to use traffic. He's been able, when Carribert has to kind of check up and say, where's this traffic going to go? Where are they going to let me by? That has allowed Priaulx to close up in those braking zones. Other than that, Carribert has not put a wheel wrong. And the more dry this racetrack has gotten, I think the stronger Carribert has gotten. It shows what a good car he has underneath him, that's for sure. But he's doing a great job, and he's choosing wisely in traffic. He's making the moves when he can make them. He doesn't risk too much to get them done, but he also doesn't sit back and wait and allow Priaulx the opportunity to pounce.
Yeah, Danny Formal, by the way, has just brought what was the 8th place, car number 46, into the pit lane with an hour and 3 minutes remaining. I think that's going to be awfully difficult for him to get to the end of this race without making another stop. But Carribert there, another 146.2. This is fantastic. Really, really impressed by this guy. I mean, as you said, Sebastian Priaulx, he's one of the rising stars in this sport. He won massively, impressively last year's Porsche Carrera Cup North America. He was on pole in almost all the races, I think 12 out of 16 races, if I'm not mistaken. He got pole position, so he had the speed and the racecraft as well. He's one of the Multimatic factory drivers these days, Seb Priaulx, so clearly has a big future ahead of him. But Carribert is holding him off.
That's what we were saying earlier. You measure yourself against the known commodities, and for a guy like Carribert at 24 years old, he's looking at Seb Priaulx, who's 21 years old, and as you said, has factory affiliations and is a championship-winning race car driver. And it's like, okay, I'm measuring up pretty well right now. I'm liking what I'm seeing.
Yeah, no question about it. I must admit, I've been very pleasantly surprised by him at this stage. And we've just got the 2 cars on the lead lap now. I didn't see what the gap was last year, 1 minute 37. So George Kurtz in second place. He's only about 10 seconds away from being lapped. In fact, in a couple of laps' time, he probably is going to go a lap down to the race leader, and then will lose that second position to Seb Prio, who's third, and as we've been saying, one lap down in that kind of a 14.
I think the only saving grace for George Kurtz right now is that as we close in on an hour to go, within about 5 to 6 minutes, it opens up the opportunity to pit for your final time. You should be able to make it to the checkered flag from the 55-minute mark for sure. So you look at 115 seconds on pit lane, so really 57, 58 minutes, you could head to pit lane and get out and be assured, I would think, that you can make it to the checkered flag. So if that's the case, could be one of those things that Kurtz is going to be saved from going a lap down, because pit stops are going to start happening here in the next 3 to 5 minutes.
Indeed so, and hats off to George Kurtz. Yes, he's being outpaced.
Oh, yeah.
He's on wet weather tyres, and that is most definitely not the tyre to have. It says a lot, by the way, for Michelin. They can produce a tyre that runs for a full hour on what is pretty much a dry racetrack. So hats off to Michelin providing these tyres, and hats off particularly to George Kurtz, who's just turned his best lap of the race, a 152.6 in that second position. There's 2 meters that are homing in, are they not?
Well, and you go back to measuring yourself against others. We think, or we know, that Dario Cangialosi is also still on a wet weather tire, and you look at the lap times his turning last time by, a 52.7, Kurtz a 52.6. You know, you're measuring yourself against a 21-year-old who's up and coming, and you're besting him right now, you know, or you're certainly running with him. So it's one of those deals where, you know, it just goes to show again what caliber of driver George Kurtz is.
Yeah, really good fun. And another battle. Yeah, there's Courtney Crone there. She's just lost at least one position. Did she get passed by Kujala as well? Courtney Crone in car number 3 for Junior 3 racing, just been I think overtaken by her teammate Ari Balog, yes, who is ahead of them. I think Patrick Kujala in car number 77, I think, was able to get past both of them.
I think you're right. And for Courtney Crone, you know, we talked about this earlier. She's been racing since she was 3 or 4 years old. I know Bob Stallings is a big fan of hers, says she's a very gutsy driver. She just needs time in the car. She's driven just about everything. She's driven vintage cars. She's driven midgets. She's been at the Chili Bowl. And I think if she can get in a car and get focused, and there's the 14 in. So Prio has said, you know what? I can't get around him on the racetrack. Let's get in, let's get our stop done, final stop done, and get out and see if we can start laying some lap times down, and then see if we can get what we need as far as a yellow or something like that. So the 14, one of the first to take that final stop. But back to what I was saying about Courtney Crone, you know, you need to put yourself in a position where you've got a consistent team, a consistent engineer that works with you and what your style is. And you need to get your head around that and be good between the ears. And when you can find that confidence, that really helps. And when that confidence comes from consistency with both the car, the team, and the engineer that you drive with, and then you can find a package that works for you. She certainly has the experience and the skill to get that done. She just needs the experience, as Bob Stallings said. And a problem here is that the 43? 23 now is in the leader.
Yeah, so with 58 minutes remaining in this race, yeah, they should be okay. It's still fairly tight on fuel to get to the end from here, and yeah, they don't need to take any risks at this stage. There's the number 23 car, and if there is a full course caution, there's that number 43 car for Stephen McAleer pulls off the racetrack, unfortunately. So it looks like a mechanical problem for that guy, who's about 5 laps down at this stage. But for Carribert here, he's got everything in hand, so just take it easy. Is he going to hand that car back to Memo Gidlett, or will he stay at the wheel?
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Obviously, he has the pace. I don't see a driver change going on.
No.
I don't think it would have been done by now.
No, absolutely right. So, I mean, hats off to the guy. And George Kurtz certainly will hand over the number 4 car to Jonathan Bennett. We'll bring that car home again, but look like fuel only here for Carribert. He's just got to be patient now. That minimum of 115 seconds is from the pit entry to the pit exit. So the team will know, whoops, there's Tony Skazim's running off the road. Or Bruce Hamilton still, okay. They haven't pitted yet, okay. Where was I going with that? Yeah, so the pit stop itself does not take 115 seconds, so they have to wait a little bit in their pit stall. They know from the information they gained earlier in the weekend how long it takes to get from their pit stall to the pit out, and that has to be a total then of 115 seconds.
John Bennett climbing in behind the wheel of the four Kurtz. What a spectacular job that he did in very trying conditions. The full wet early on, then the drying conditions with the rain tires going away, and now John Bennett will take the number 4 CrowdStrike entry out on slick Michelin tires to get those up to temperature pretty quickly, and expect to see Bennett running good lap times. But the 23 has played all the cards properly today. As long as they get out of pit lane and make sure that, and I'm sure that John Church and the guys with the 23 at JDC Motorsports were not about to let them be short on that pit stop. They were going to be extra careful. You have time in hand. I'd rather spend an extra second getting out of the pits than the time it takes to do a drive-through penalty. And that's where a lot of people lose track of this. If you're a second longer and you lose 30 or 40, 50, 100 feet on the racetrack, who cares? Because you're going to lose a lot more than that if you have to do a drive-through penalty because you get eager and you try to cut it too close. You know, you have to be smart, especially in a race like this. And oh, here it is. Full course caution being shown right now. We are under full course caution. Where is the 14? Did he get back on the lead lap with that section, with that group of pit stops?
And that's why it was a mistake to bring that number 23 car into the pits unless they needed to. If he'd stayed out there, he would have one, possibly we'd have a full lap over everybody. Now, I don't think he can have that.
Let's see as they scroll through. Where is he on the racetrack right now? Obviously on the banking. So I don't have my timing screen working with the dancing ants on it, so I don't know exactly where he is in relation to the, well, there he is in relation to the 23.
Cool. Okay, well, that's to number 14 car. So that's a stroke of luck, certainly, to keep that car lap down. So they've done a good job there. Their pit stop, by the way, was 1 minute 58, which is, so that's 118 seconds. So a couple of seconds margin there to make sure they didn't undercut that minimum pit stop time, and it's paid off for them. But there's still another few cars here. There are, I think, back on the lead lap. Number 47 has not yet stopped. Neither has number 77, number 30, number 3, nor the 60. So I believe with that pit stop for number 23, they will all be on the lead lap. They need a pit stop, but they can make that under caution, and they will be able to do that, make that pit stop and not lose a lap.
Lady Luck, you don't know when she's going to smile on you or not. And it's like you said, Jeremy, for the 14 team, if they could have waited just a little bit longer, if, well, we can what if things to death, right? I mean, that's what racing is about. And I don't even want to step into the final round of the Formula One World Championship last year with the ifs. I don't want to open that. I don't want to open that box, but you know what I mean? You just don't know how or when it's going to shine on you or the shade's going to fall on you.
Right. Super costly for number 4 car, by the way, which I don't think has yet come around to complete its out lap for George Kurtz. I think he's still in the pits, or not. He certainly hasn't come out to complete his next lap. So he's going to go all the way from second place down to probably outside the top. He is outside now the top 10 for George Kurtz. That was how costly this caution period has proven to be for that number 4 team. Really unfortunate.
Asking all the cars to pack up now, so they want to get these cars more up to speed, get them back to the pack. In the beginning, they want you to slow down so that they can kind of get the situation sorted, at that point in time, they'll ask you to pack up. And so the cars at the back need to pick up the pace a little bit, get back up to the leaders and the safety car so that we can get restarted. Safety car out of turn 2 banking and down the back straight towards the bus stop. Right. Field will get reorganized, and I would think we'd be back to racing with 50 minutes or so to go.
Yeah, but this is a full course. This is going to give the opportunity for these teams to have, well, I don't think there's any stipulation, is there, to how long this caution period lasts. So if they are able to get it cleared up fairly quickly, and there is not time, the pit's not opened, that'll be costly for the guys that have not made a pit stop. But that car still is out there on that back straightaway, so we're not going to be going green anytime soon. I'm pretty sure the pits will be open this time around. The number 4 car, by the way, John Bennett, did get back out of the racetrack, so he is only 1 lap down, as he was, of course, before the pit stop, because he'd just been lapped, if you remember, by our race leader Alexander Carribert in Carribert 23. But now he's still 1 lap down. He's down in 12th position. He's Carribert 12, actually behind Dakota Dickerson, who is now 1 lap down, who has set the fastest lap of this race.
Yeah, this is.
See pit stops now, are we? Yes.
Yeah, I would think so. If you hadn't, you need to. That's for sure. And yeah. A trove of cars heads to the pit lane.
All these cars
headed by the 47.
Yeah, 47, 77, 33, and 60, I believe, all those pit stop.
To see how everyone cycles through as they come by, and who remains on the lead lap with the 23. It was a pretty lonely place. And yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, no, exactly right. Everybody else has already been lapped. So these cars, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, 47, 77, 33, and 60, all on the pits right now. They are still on the lead lap, and they should be able to complete this service, get out of the pits, still serving that minimum pit stop time of 1 minute 115 seconds, and remain on the lead lap. The last time around for the race leader was almost 4 minutes. So yeah, if they can do their pit stop in 2 plus making the service itself, which should be no problem, they should be able to stay on the lead lap. So Seb Priaulx, the first of the cars 1 lap down, will remain, I believe, unless there's any problems for those cars ahead of him in the pits right now, in 7th position. Also behind him, Nick Johnson in car number 15, Danny Formal in car number 46, and number 4 for John Bennett. They've already made their final pit stop. Behind them, also on that lap, 1 lap behind Alexander Carribert, Dakota Dickerson in car number 54, Keith Grant, who had some problems lately in car number 40, and Antoine Comeau, who's also had some dramas in the RV Motorsports car number 44. Those 3 cars, 54, 40, and 44, are making their final pit stop. Well, I hope is a final pit stop now, and are 1 lap down, and should be able to remain 1 lap down.
The MLT Motorsports crew taking this opportunity under full course caution to continue to work on repairing the back of that car to try to make it even better for Dakota Dickerson. Obviously, it's a pretty quick race car right now, but if you can tidy up some of those loose ends back there on the under tray and make it even better, what can Dickerson do with it? 48 minutes to go from Daytona International Speedway under full course caution. Checkered flag within sight. I say that simply because this is a 3-hour race, so we're inside the final hour, and we should be able to get back to green flag racing relatively soon, as the stricken number 43 from Robillard Racing and JDC Motorsports is moved out of the way there on the back straightaway where it had its problem. And all these late pit stops, it's going to be interesting. It has changed the dynamic. It's changed the complexion of this race. And Seb Priaulx is saying, you know, you really ought to wave lap cars through so that there's no one in between the leader and the second place car because he's sitting second on the racetrack behind
you say that
Alexander Carribert.
It actually hasn't really changed a bit. Well, I suppose it has because we've still got those other cars still on the lead lap. You're right, ahead of Seb Priaulx. So Priaulx's got a lot of work to do here to not only pass those cars that are. Well, he should be ahead of them on the racetrack, shouldn't he?
Yep, he's ahead of them on the racetrack, but I mean,
that's the good news. He just needs to get past Carribert. He needs to get past Carribert and hope for another full course caution.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you get another full course caution, then the complexion of the race has completely changed. That's why I say it's changed now, because before this caution, we had one, maybe two cars on the lead lap. Kurtz was about to go a lap down. Not sure if it happened under green or not, but then when this caution came, now all of a sudden we've got 5, 6, 7 cars on the lead lap. They're back in the serial, but they're on the lead lap. And if we get back to another full course caution, then Alexander Carribert is going to have that much more work to stay in front until the checkered flag.
Yeah, and as a result of those pit stops, all of a sudden Arie Balog now finds himself in second position in car number 30, ahead of Patrick Cougela in car number 77, who was third, remains third. Then it's Dario Cangialosi, then Courtney Crone, then Tony's Kazimierz. We know how quick Tony's Kazimierz is because he led the early stages of this race up until his pit stop on lap 32. So Tony's Kazimierz, he is the guy who's right back in the frame now to go for this win.
There are, at least when I look down on the field, you see Carribert, the first car behind the safety car in the white and black number 23 from JDC Motorsports. You see him, but then when you look at the other cars, the car directly behind him is Priaulx. I think you got to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think the 7th car back is Arie Balog, who's shown in second place. All the other cars in between are lap cars.
That's right, and certainly Arie, who's driving this race solo, that's a stout effort. 3 hours.
He's going to be tired, yeah.
So he's going to be pretty tired at the end of this one. He's getting his money's worth, that's for sure. And I believe that Arie is going to be driving the regular season in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship for Junior 3 Racing in its Airbnb Ligier. But the Rolex 24 next weekend is not for LMP3 a round of the overall series championship. It's only a round of the Michelin Endurance Cup. So that is why he is not doing next weekend's race, and indeed why he's getting some experience here. But right behind him is the young Spanish-born Finn Patrick Cougela. He's going to be fast here at the restart. Dario Cangialosi is now going to be on the right tyres. Courtney Crone is going to have an opportunity again to shine here, but then behind her is Tony's Kazimierz, and he for sure in car number 60 for Volvo Racing going to be a guy to keep our eye on at the restart.
And the good news for Seb Priaulx is he doesn't have to deal with any of those people right now. All he's got is Carribert in front, and this is where the experience of Priaulx may come into play on this restart. I'm sure the team in Alexander Carribert's ear telling him what to do on this restart. Priaulx's going to try to get the best of him, get his lap back, coming to green. Priaulx's on it, and he's starting to make a move. He's going to look to the high side as they head down to turn 1. What's the brake zone going to be like? Who's going to be the bravest? You've got to be impressed with Alexander Carribert. Look at him hold off Seb Priaulx. Priaulx cannot get it done into 1.
Wow, is all I can say to that.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. And again, keeping the door closed there into turn 3, Alexander Carribert, he's doing exactly what he needs to do. Has this guy been top class racing for years? No, he hasn't. It's his first ever professional race, and he's holding off Sebastian Priaulx right now. And he's going to be, I'm sure he's going to be defensive again here for the next couple of corners, but he's going to put his head down and try and turn some quick laps and maintain that lead as long as he possibly can.
For someone who's used to being on stage and being an entertainer, Alexander Carribert certainly entertaining the fans here this weekend and using that same focus and professionalism to hit his marks, literally and figuratively, to try to keep Priaulx behind him. This isn't about the lead right now, but it's about keeping one of your major competitors a lap down. What can Prio get done this time? Carribert with the right move, stays low. He's going to make Prio go to the high side. It'll be a battle in the braking zone. Prio able to pull out just a little bit. Prio back on the lead lap, at least for now.
Yeah, and the Ligier, they're clearly quicker in a straight line than the Duquesne of our race leader, Alexander Carribert. That was what the difference was there, because Carribert didn't get defensive into turn 6. He got a good run onto the banking. That Ligier was just playing quicker on the straight. And now back onto the lead lap. Still in 7th position, said Prio, but back onto the lead lap, albeit all but a lap down.
Now it's one of those deals where for Carribert, he's going to have to see how he stacks up lap time wise with some of the more experienced drivers behind him. Prio more experienced as far as racing goes, but he doesn't have much experience in an LMP3 car either. So Prio learning the ropes here, but he has gotten his lap back as a problem there in turn 1, slides a little wide, and cars on the lead lap beginning to work through. Kajula, impressive young driver. You talked about him earlier as well, Jeremy, a former champion in Lamborghini Super Trofeo, and one of those young guns looking to make an impression, and he has been. What can he do? Can he claw his way up? Remember, there were, at the drop of the green, there were 6-lap cars between the leader and 2nd place on the racetrack. Yeah,
but as expected, Tony's Casmets there, he was on the move right at that restart. He made up 1, 2, 3 positions on that first lap of green flag racing, up into 3rd position, and on that lap, on the restart lap, he set that car's fastest lap of the race. Of course, it's now finally on the right tyres, on slick tyres, with 52.18 there for Tony's. He's working his way through that traffic.
Look back behind for a red and blue number 77. That will be the 2nd place car in the battle. And there it is, onto the banks, and just behind him it looks like the 54 of Dakota Dickerson, but Dickerson a further lap down, but 77 trying to find forward. Yeah,
so he was able to get 1 lap back during that caution period, with number 23 car having made its pit stop. Number 54 waited until after that, was able to take advantage of that full course to make that stop under yellow. Therefore, he's gained 1 lap back again. But as you say, Dickinson still 1 lap down to race leaders. Harry Baylog now is into car number 30.
And this is where
penalty, short pit stop plus 1.2 seconds for car number 30.
Talking about how costly that can be. Dakota Dickerson now by the 77. I was going to say, this is where it's so important to know who you're racing with, because for the 77, he needed to know that that car was a lap down. It's not for position. Dickerson, little puff off the left front as Kajala tries to get slowed down and not run over the 57 there in front of him. Dickerson able to really attack. And then side by side down to the International Horseshoe and all the way down to the West Horseshoe, I think. Yeah, I think Kajala was so focused on trying to keep Dickerson behind him that he got in there and almost overran the 57 of Sereno.
Yeah. This is fascinating stuff. So for Alexander Carribert at this stage, he's got, Prio's back on the lead lap. Don't worry about him. Just maintain your pace, keep your tyres in good shape in case you need them later on in this contest. He's got the legs on Patrick Kujala. The gap between them was Kujala was a couple of tenths slower than last time, so fairly closely matched. But here now is Tony's Casmets trying to make that move into 2nd place. Across the line, he's got it, but can he get it? Turn 1. Just.
And Casmets absolutely flying right now. He does not want to be denied. This is his opportunity to take himself and Bruce Hamilton to a victory that they have not had before in Prototype Challenge. And for Kujala, he needed to know that he was fighting against one of the toughest competitors out there. Tony Kazimierz has driven just about everything in his career, including a few races in the IndyCar series, and a very, very talented driver in anything that he's ever driven. And what impresses me about Kazimierz, Jeremy, and I think you would agree, the driver that certainly has a lot of pride in what it is that he does, but not so much pride that he won't drive something. He doesn't say, oh, well, I've reached this level of my career, I won't drive that. It's beneath me. If you offered him a good Formula Ford right now to take to the June sprints, he'd go run it.
Yeah, and he did last year.
And he did, yeah.
Yeah, he will. You're right. He'll drive anything, anywhere. Just a great guy. He's, in addition to driving with Bruce Hamilton, whom he coaches, of course, and has done now for a number of years. He coaches various other young drivers. He's worked as a driver coach for Augie Papp's team, for Papp's Racing on the road to Indy, in the USF 2000 Championship and Indy Pro 2000. He's an accomplished driver coach there. And last year, he organised for himself and Augie Paps to drive this Volvo racing car in a one-off race at Road America, which is all. That was a really cool story, as we see. That was
Tony Ave.
Yeah, Antoine Comeau.
Oh, Antoine Comeau, yes.
There's a couple of laps, 2 or 3 laps off the pace, I think.
Looking at last laps by 45.2 for Carribert, 45.5 for Kazimierz, and a 46.7 for Kujala, who I believe got caught in traffic. But for Alexander Carribert, and I'm starting to see some moisture falling on the lenses of the camera there in the West Horseshoe. For Carribert, his team just needs to keep telling him his lap time, telling him what he's doing. And I wouldn't even give him a gap. I don't think I would tell him on the radio. I don't think I would give him a gap, because the gap is going to ebb and flow. It's going to go back and forth based upon traffic. Don't let the gap get in his head if Kazimierz picks up a second here or there, because you're going to get it back in traffic when you get back to working your way through lap traffic, which he'll get to before long.
Hey, he's not listening to you, Brian. He's just Carribert on his last lap just set his best lap of the race.
No, but that's what I'm saying. That's what he needs to do. He just needs to go out and focus forward.
Yeah, brilliant. In fact, he was several tenths quicker, a couple of tenths quicker than Tony Kazimierz in second position. So
do what you're doing.
Exactly right. Dakota Dickerson in the pits.
Just under 35 minutes to go in round 1 of IMSA Prototype Challenge. Round 1 at Daytona International Speedway, a 3-hour event. And we're coming down to the final half hour here in the next few minutes. It's been great storylines throughout. Bad weather in the beginning, treacherous conditions for those drivers, and maybe even more treacherous in the mid stages where the track was beginning to dry, and we had drivers making choices to stay out on rain tires that were falling away. And it was really up to the crews and the engineers with the information from the driver to make those calls. But what's been so impressive all weekend long, the return to Daytona for Memo Gidley in a prototype car. He qualified it on a pole and handed it to his rookie teammate, who's never run a professional race in his career, Alexander Carribert, who is out front and has been for a good while here. Tony Kazimierz, with so much experience in Prototype Challenge and LMP3 based machinery, 6.3 seconds behind the last time at the line, and this has been a Cinderella story so far. Can it remain that way for 33 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, again, last time around, a new best lap there for Alexander Carribert, 1 minute 45.125, so a tenth of a second quicker than his previous lap. You know, you've got to love it. He's got the pace and the consistency. That's what you want. And hats off here for everybody, the entire team, but particularly for Alex Damalis here from Texas for giving him this opportunity. And Alexander certainly has gained a lot this weekend just from working with Memo Gidley, who'd never driven this car before yesterday's practice sessions. He's taking full advantage. He's clearly a sponge in terms of picking up knowledge as he's going along.
And had never been to Daytona International Speedway before, so didn't know the car, didn't know the racetrack, and a lot to learn. And he learned a lot in a short period of time. A quick study, and I go back to his upbringing and the fact that he's an entertainer, and you study and you know what your role is, and he's done all that in the motorsports world. He did it with his time at the Lucas School and listening to his instructors there, running in their race series, applying it, focusing on the business side of it so he could find the funding to go racing. And the act that he is putting on today is a good one. A lot of times his on-stage acting is that of a comedian. There's nothing funny about this one. This has been all serious business. A bit of a drama, perhaps, you could say, Jeremy, but what a performance.
Yeah, really impressive. And last time around, 1:45.3. His lap time and Tony's Casamet's pretty much identical. There's over 6 seconds between these two leading cars right now. And there's all sorts of battling going on. Mainly, actually, the cars are not on the same lap as each other, because we've got 7 cars on the lead lap. In third position is Patrick Kujala. He's about 3 seconds behind Casamet's. And now we've got Courtney Crone, who's pretty much on her own now in 5th position. She's still 45 seconds ahead of Ari Balog in 6th position, and then charging as hard as he can, but still got nearly half a minute to make up. 27 seconds gap from 6th, car number 30, to 7th, car number 14.
It's interesting. The last thing that anybody wants to see, other than the cars that are behind him a little bit, and Seb Prio especially, is a full course caution. That would be heartbreaking for the 23 team at JDC Motorsports, and obviously for Alexander Carribert, but you never know. Still have 30 minutes to go. It's why you keep pressing, and it's why you keep saying to your drivers, there are different messages being delivered to these drivers throughout the pack. You know that what Seb Prio is being told by Sean Creech there at Sean Creech Motorsports behind the wheel of the 14, he's being told, go, just run as hard as you can, as hard as you can, as hard as you can. We might catch a break. We might catch a break. If you're John Church, you're telling Alexander Carribert, great job, focus forward, great job. I'm looking at the raindrops, though, on the lens of the camera there in the West Horseshoe, and a car off there. I think grip is beginning to go away. What are the lap times looking like? They're getting slower.
47 last time round for a race leader, which is a couple of seconds slower than the previous lap. This is the battle here for the sort of lower end of the top 10. We've got Keith Grant is in there. John Bennett in a bright yellow car is Keith Grant. John Bennett is right there, number 4, and number 15 as well, which is Nick Johnson. Now, Nick Johnson and John Bennett are pretty good buddies. But they were different teams. They are in fact run by the same team here this weekend. Nick Johnson is driving that number 15 car with Mike Watt, run by D Motorsports, but also that number 4 CrowdStrike Racing, car number 4, also run by D Motorsports as well. That's Danny Duenas' team, and they are battling away their 4th position and the 10th position, in fact. 48.8 now, so 3 seconds away from what they were turning just a couple of laps to go for our race leader, Alexander Carribert. The gap from first to second has come down by a couple of seconds as well, down to 4.3.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. This is, unfortunately, where the experience of Tonis Casamet's has the advantage. Not so much on the dry racetrack, because Alexander Carribert, I think, was comfortable in those conditions. Now we're moving back, and I'm looking at the radar. You can barely see any color on the radar at all. And this is when it's the most difficult time to drive, because it's not wet enough for a rain tire that gives you that confidence. And you can see how slick it is. 44 off Antoine Commode there in turn 1 under braking. You just don't know what you're going to get. Every time you go around the racetrack, it's a little bit different. The grip is beginning to go away, and I'm not sure that it's all around the racetrack. It looks like that bit of moisture was more pronounced on the west end of the racetrack, which would be the West Horseshoe, turn 6, and then turns 1 and 2 on the banking. I didn't see it so much, and maybe a little bit in turn 1. I didn't see it so much in the International Horseshoe, but it's one of those things where the experience of a Tonys Kasemets in one of these cars and what they do, that's where this is really going to come into play. And the lead now is almost non-existent. Well, it's inside 3 seconds.
Yeah, but 27 minutes remaining in this race. There's still plenty of time here for anything to happen. And this battle between the front battle between actually, no, that's a lap car, Anton Comeau. Had a bit of a nightmare in this race. That number 40-40. They started off fast, but have all sorts of dramas later on, and now a couple of laps off the race.
And yeah, Antoine Comeau with the problems. I've been impressed with his speed this weekend. We've seen him in the past, and I don't think there were times when he ran with Conquest Racing with Colin Mullen as a co-driver that he was matching the pace of Mullen. But tell you what, this weekend I've been impressed with his pace as compared to his co-driver Tony Ave. As you look now at first and second, and this is really as close as second place has been to Carribert in quite a while. And it's one of those things where he needs to keep doing what he's doing. I know that he might be frustrated that the gap is coming down, that he can now see Kasemets, but he needs to do what he's been doing, try to see if he can find a little bit more grip. This is far from over with. Kasemets has the bit in his teeth. He can make a mistake and go off the racetrack, and you can be a part of someone else's problem. 40 is around.
Yep, Grant Brothers off of turn 6. And I think Courtney Crone was dodging around there as well to get past. She's in a pretty comfortable 5th position, but that will certainly have cost her time as well.
And look at the slide that time for Tonys Kasemets. He's getting everything he can out of the car. It's like I said, he's got a lot more experience in type than Carribert does, so he's going to press a little harder, but that pressing a little harder can put him in harm's way. And the other car that I saw in the background, Kujala, is now very visible in this. There's first and second, and there's third. It's tightening up.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? 2.1 seconds as they crossed the line last time around. So Kasemets again about half a second quicker that lap than Carribert. But Comeau's off the road again. Goodness gracious. I've lost count of the number of times that car's been off the road in this race.
Remember where Kujala's from.
You know, this is number 44. This is that was Comeau. Well, he's from
no, I was saying, remember that Kujala is listed as being from Finland, so in these slick conditions, he may enjoy them. He's charging forward, and
true. But
talk about charging.
He's actually lived most of his life in warmer climes. He was born in Marbella in Spain, in fact, and I'm not sure he's actually. I don't know whether he's ever lived in Finland, but you're right. Yeah, with that sort of name and the country, the heritage he comes from, he certainly should be able to shine in these conditions.
Yeah, you would think so. But here it is. This is it. This is the battle for the lead. It's all come down to this. We've raced for 2 hours and almost 40 minutes, and now what was a lead for Alexander Carribert, Lady Luck stepped in with that full course caution, changed everything, and now Tonys Kasemets has the bit in his teeth, the rabbit just in front, and the conditions are not ideal for the rookie in front.
No, they certainly play into the hands of Tonys Kasemets. Again, he's from cooler climes as well, from Estonia. So again, a massive amount of experience, you could say, all the way through this race this afternoon. And he's now going to have to use that experience to get past this youngster ahead of him. He's already catching him is one thing. Can he make the pass, however?
Duquesne chassis in the hand of Alexander Carribert in front in the 23, sharing that car with pole sitter Memo Gidley, JDC Motorsports, and Tonys Kasemets just behind in the 60. He and Bruce Hamilton share that number 60, which is a Ligier chassis. We've talked about the Duquesne seemingly, oddly enough, to be the better car in the infield this weekend, and the Ligier the better car on the high banks. We're about to find out as Kasemets closer than he has ever been. As they come out of 6, stays low, and it looks like he has the momentum.
Yeah, and he is in a Ligier Carribert, of course, in a Duquesne, and once again, he got a great drive off the corner.
He's not giving up.
What is he?
He's not giving up. A battle in the break zone. Kazimit's the preferred line on the inside. Carribert is going to press him, but Kazimit's through, and that looked like two very experienced professionals showing respect, racing hard into the bus stop that time, and for the first time in well over an hour, I believe, Alexander Carribert is no longer in the lead.
Yeah, it's been a while. Back on lap 42 was when he took the lead. Been out front all the way since then, but on lap 76, it's going to be that number 60 car of Tony Kazimit's that leads across the line now with 21 minutes remaining.
I think now is the time that the message in your young driver's ear changes. Now you can start to whip the horse a little bit as you head towards the finish line. He's not in front, he's not in risk of making a mistake, he's running second. Push him. Now's the time to push him. And he's got the rabbit in front, and sometimes in conditions like this, Jeremy, it's easier to follow and let the car in front make the mistake and then try to pounce at the end when you've sat there and studied it and figured out where you're going to make the move. Is that what Carribert can do with less experience, but obviously impressive pace?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see now whether, what Alexander Carribert now is going to go to school effectively on Tony Kazimit's. Does he have the pace to stay with him? He was quicker in the drying conditions. If it dries out, perhaps that's going to play into Alexander's favor as well. So, there's still 20 minutes remaining, long way to go. Patrick Kugelai, he's also all of a sudden a lot closer because those two leaders cost themselves a fair bit of time on that last lap, going side by side into the bus stop chicane. And that gap between second and third halved. It was 4 seconds, now just over 2.
And I think for Kugelai, when you look at it, he's got more racing experience, not a massive amount of time in LMP3 cars, but what he's got and what we've seen all weekend long is if he can get close to Carribert out of turn 6 and onto the high banks, it seems like the Ligier just a touch more straight line speed. But this is the other thing that can come into play. This race far from over with. Traffic right now. It's going to hold up, and it is holding up. Kazimit's, what can he do? He's got to get through cleanly. Don't be a part of someone else's problem. Kazimit's is through, and forceful move by Carribert. He goes with him. Good move. He's right there with Kazimit's off of the horseshoe.
Yeah, and that is number 30 car of Ari Balog, who's just been overtaken, by the way, on that last lap by Seb Priaulx. So Priaulx now up into 6th position. Ari Balog is now lapped in 7th, and he's about 16 seconds ahead of Danny Fourmal, who's next up.
And I'll tell you what, there's no lack of the willingness to attack on Carribert's part. That was pretty special there into the West Horseshoe. That's not a big gap. You know it's going to close because you know Kazimit's is going to try to come down for an apex, but Kazimit's, since that he's there, doesn't close all the way down. They do touch a little bit. Carribert's got to get out of it, and that has allowed Kugelai to pounce. He is right there, and this is not where Carribert wanted to see him, and that is on the high banks with him. Will the Ligier have the top speed? Will he be able to get it done into the bus stop? No. Impressive performance by Carribert still, driving like a veteran, holding Kugelai off.
Great stuff, isn't it, between these two, and now Carribert there making that move was pretty brave. Probably cost him a little bit of time there because he lost the momentum off the corner, and that allowed Kugelai to close right in. And this is now a big battle going on for second and third between Carribert and Kugelai.
Well, and that's what I was saying though, Jeremy. After the lead was lost, I think it was time to turn the attack on. That's what Carribert did, and now he's pressing just a little too hard. Kugelai is going to take over that position, and Carribert now back to third. That's okay. Stay focused, stay forward, limit the mistakes, and see what you can get back. The other thing is, I'm seeing a little less rain now on the lens of the cameras again. Is the track going to dry back out? It slowed down several seconds from where we were earlier, but I don't think we are done with changing weather and track conditions just yet. Less drops on the lens of the camera down in the West Horseshoe.
Yeah, could be certainly. This last lap around, they're now, the leaders are doing 48.8 for our race leader, Tony Kazimierz. The previous couple of laps, they were down in the 50s. And we're going to have to see now, keep an eye on those lap times, see whether they do improve. The quickest car on the track last time around was actually Nick Johnson in car number 15 at 147.0. He was actually a fraction quicker than Seb Prio. It's pretty impressive for Nick Johnson. Good for him.
Kazimierz through lap traffic on the way to the bus stop, and Carribert has not let go of the rear wing of the 77. And that's what I was saying earlier. Once the lead is lost, push him hard, let him go, because right now the top three are okay. If you've lost the lead, you've lost the lead. You know, it looks like a top three finish is there if Cangialosi stays that 8 or 9 seconds back to where he is. So push hard, work. I think you can push harder now than when you were out in front a little bit earlier. Take the reins off of him, take the blinders off of him, and look at the lockup on the left front for Kujala. He's starting to press him.
Yeah, and even now in the lead of the race, Tony Kazimierz, he's only a couple of seconds ahead, so we've seen how quickly things can change here, and with conditions continuing to change as well. 147.7 last time out for Kazimierz, which is 4/10 quicker than Patrick Kujala, but of course Kujala made that pass on the last lap as well, 4-second position to get past Carribert. So now with clear track ahead of him, Kujala, can he put his head down and can he close the gap to Kazimierz and battle for the lead?
This is where the Ligier seems to be so strong this weekend. A surprise to many of us that are used to seeing the Duquesne chassis with a little top speed advantage, but don't know if they've gone to running different downforce settings or not. We've talked about this. The Ligier just seems to have a very, very slight advantage, and we've seen it more with some cars, less with others, which tells me it's a downforce issue. It's what the teams have elected to run to make their drivers feel comfortable and get the lap time. But that's the interesting thing about downforce. You run a certain amount, it can give you the ultimate lap time, but it may not give you the ultimate race car. You got to think about what you need in order to race. Where do passes get made here, and how long is the run from the bus stop, which is arguably a mid-speed corner, to the start-finish line? It's a long way around. You need good top speed. You need to get to that top speed relatively quickly. You don't want to run a lot of drag. So maybe that's what we're seeing in the Ligiers, and maybe it takes a little more downforce on the Duquesne to get it through the infield so that you can make passes in the brake zone, but then that downforce comes back to haunt you when you get on the high banks and you need the car to be free and able to run.
Switches and roundabouts, trade-offs. Yeah, that's what racing is all about, isn't it? And particularly with these changing conditions, this is a fascinating race. We're inside now the final 15 minutes of this 3-hour race. I can't believe we've gone nearly 3 hours. We've been talking for nearly 3 hours. It's gone past so quickly. It's been a tremendous race at the frontier, and remains so. The gap between first and second absolutely stagnant. The top 3 cars turned laps virtually identical in that last lap. Actually, in fourth place, Dario Cangialosi was a little bit quicker, but quicker than by quite a long way was Seb Prio. He turned to 145.9 last time around from the 147.5 for Kazimierz. But Prio, he's still well over half a minute behind Courtney Crone, who's running on her own now. She's fallen 50 seconds behind the fourth place car of Cangialosi. But all she has to do now is bring that car home, finish in fifth place. And Prio, he still needs that caution period to get himself back into contention.
Bruce Hamilton, Tonis Kazimierz. Kazimierz behind the wheel right now of the leading number 60. They have won an IMSA Prototype Challenge competition before. They won here at Daytona. They won here last year, but that was in the P2 category for older cars. So this would be an impressive performance if they can stay there for the next 12 and a half minutes. There's still drivers behind that want to have something to say about that. But what has impressed me, Jeremy, in the race this weekend is that we're seeing an influx of drivers that we've not seen here before. Casimets, Hamilton, yes, we have. Venus, yes, we have, but not Kujala, not Carribert. We haven't seen Memo Gidley here at Daytona in a prototype since 2014, his first time in a prototype challenge car here. And so there's kind of this new order kind of mixing in with some of the other established drivers who have been here. And the future looks very bright from what I see, because the competition has been awesome. Like you said, we're almost 2 hours and 50 minutes into this 3-hour race, and there's been plenty to talk about the entire time.
Yeah, pretty cool, isn't it? We've got a battle here for the cars that are one lap down between 7th, 8th and 9th. The green and white car, number 46, that's 94 Mile. I think he's managed to get past the number 30 of Ari Baylog. I think Nick Johnson has gone past perhaps the both of them in car number 15. Nick Johnson has been absolutely flying lately. Where is Johnson's car? That's in ahead of him. So he charged down, caught 94 Mile. I think he's passed him as well. And to Ari Baylog now has gone from 7th, I think, to what would be 9th position this time.
And Nick Johnson there in the 15 indeed has gotten through. And I mean, you look at guys like Nick Johnson and the skill and the experience there behind the wheel of all kinds of machinery, including prototypes at the highest levels, and a guy who's run Le Mans, stood on the podium there. And it's just great to have drivers of that caliber here, and here with the guys that they coach and that they've worked with, and you watch their rise up through the field. And you know, Mike Watt ran in the P2 category a couple of races last year as well, and it's one of those things, it's just changed the complexion. I'm glad to see us back into the one class. We needed that transition year to help teams move from investments that they had into new investments, and what it's built is a stronger prototype challenge series, I believe.
Completely agree with you, yeah, and super to see 20 cars on the grid. The first time we've had 20 cars since Speedway last year, and I think this championship, I mean, these cars are just great. They are really fun to drive. They're the sort of car that you can hop into if you have experience and enjoy. You know, they have a lot of downforce. They're fast. They sound great with those 5.6 liter crate engines, and they're fun to drive. They're fast. They have plenty of downforce, and they're relatively affordable too. As a cost-effective class, you can't do much better, particularly given performance, than LMP3.
Sounds to me like you're looking for a test in one, Jeremy.
Yes.
Would you drive one?
Are you kidding?
No. Would you drive one?
Absolutely.
I wouldn't.
I think it's going to happen, but
I want to, but I wouldn't.
Are you kidding? Consistent lap times by our race leader here, Tony Skazan. It's 46.3 last time around. So, you know, the track, I think, has dried out. That the precipitation we saw a few laps ago seems to have kind of dissipated now, and his gap from first to second, 2.7 seconds. That's staying around about the same, extended by maybe a tenth or two of a second. Alex Carribert, though, he's dropping back just a little bit in third place, and you might have to watch out for Dario Cangialosi, who's taking some really good laps in fourth position. He cut him 47, 4:47 most once. He's taken over that car from John Brown's.
Yeah, I mean, what, we've got Cangialosi some 4 seconds behind Carribert right now?
Yes, and the gap was as high as 7 seconds.
Right. So he's closing that down, as you were saying. The lap times there, it looks like the track has gotten better, and what Carribert has not been able to do is take advantage of the improving racetrack the way that Casimets, Jala, and Cangialosi have. So he's not been able to find the lap times like those guys have had just yet.
He hasn't, and that's all down to experience. I mean, that's
absolutely.
play. It's still been a tremendous performance by Carribert. He's going to hold his head high. He was looking good for a win. It's not going to happen most likely, but with now just 7.5 minutes remaining in this race, there'll be another 5 laps perhaps for Tony Skazimetz, but it's still been a tremendous performance, and he'll have learned so much these last couple of days.
And now Cangialosi at a 45.5, that's his best lap of the race, and the gap 3.2 seconds back now behind Carribert to the 47. Yeah, it's one of those deals where if you're Alexander Carribert, I don't want to see any sulking after this, or I mean, there's going to be some disappointment because you were there, but you have to measure your achievements and say, where did I expect to be? Where did I think I could be? What was realistic? You know, was it a top 5? Was it what was it? Realistically, I would say, and a mistake by Carribert there in the brake zone, he's starting to press now. Needs to settle back down and get back to what got him to the lead, as Cangialosi beginning to close down, and mistakes like that will help him. But I mean, he has absolutely nothing to be ashamed of and everything to be proud of. The other thing he has to be proud of, think about this. What's the longest time Alexander Carribert has been in a race car in one go? What's the longest stint he's had in a race car up until today?
Good question. Don't know the answer to that, but probably, as long as he's driven right now, you're absolutely right.
30 minutes?
Yeah, probably.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
In the school race series and things like that he's done, you don't do long stints. A short stint in one of these is 55 minutes to an hour. He's doubled it. He's done double. He took over from Memo Gidley on the first pit stop, and he's been in the car ever since.
Yeah, he's got to get it tired. I mean, these cars are pretty physical.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I mean, he'd done, I think he'd done a little bit of testing in this car beforehand, but certainly not much. And Gidley hadn't driven the car at all. And for Alexander, I think they had a couple of 2-day tests. They had a 2-day test at Eagles Canyon in Texas, and also 2 days at Coda as well, Circuit of the Americas. So, yeah, he's got some track time, and he will have driven the car. He's probably done a full stint there, but in terms of actual racing, it's still a very, very steep learning curve, and he has climbed it magnificently.
Yeah, it's a different ball game, and being in the car for 2 hours is a long, long time. And I tell you, it looks like, even though he made that little mistake the last time, it looks like he's been able to claw back just a little bit there through the infield that time. I don't know if Cangialosi got caught in some traffic or made a mistake on his own, but Carribert has pulled back out a little bit, gotten some of the ground back that he lost, and for Tony Skazimetz, almost 3 seconds in hand. And Tony's so experienced and so focused. I don't see a forced error coming from the cockpit of the 16.
No, nor do I. Absolutely right. He and Bruce Hamilton, they've been working hard to run up front in this series. They've had some good results in the past. Tony has actually won one of these races. Bruce, his best finished coming into this weekend was a couple of thirds with Tony's, but it's been a great day. I mean, given that Bruce Hamilton was on wet weather tyres when he really wanted to be on dries, he did a really fine job in the middle of this race, and that is what gave the opportunity for Tony Skazimetz to take advantage of that in these closing stages.
Well, that's just it, isn't it, Jeremy? You make those decisions on the pit box and with input from the drivers as to what tires you're going to be on, and a lot of it is like going to Vegas and deciding how much do you want to bet on this? How aggressive are you willing to be? And look at the raindrops again on the camera there in the West Horseshoe. I think it's getting damp again.
Yeah, I think it might be. And last time I was a 46.2, which is the quickest lap, well, a 45.9 a couple of laps ago. But I'm just looking also at Seb Prio, just on a 44.9 last time around. He's got 14 seconds to catch Courtney Crone, but he's only got 3 minutes remaining, and it's going to be probably 2 laps to go as they cross the stripe to complete. This will be the 87th lap for our race leader, Tony Kazimets. I don't know. Actually, it might be white flag. It won't be white flag this time. It will be next time, I believe.
Brian Till and Jeremy Shaw with you from Daytona International Speedway, round 1 of the 2022 IMSA Prototype Challenge Championship, and closing down the final stages of round 1 of the season. Just over 2 minutes ago, as the leader, Tony Kazimets, in that bright orange number 60, shares with Bruce Hamilton, flashes across the line, and he's extended his lead over the 77 just behind him that lap. Not much farther to go for Kazimets. What does Patrick Kujala have in hand? And can the impressive rookie Alexander Carribert, running in 3rd in the 23, can he hold off Dario Cangialosi just behind him? Carribert led a good portion of this race in some very trying conditions, and an unfortunate full course caution for him allowed some strategy to be played by others that brought the race back to him. And now Cangialosi, a mistake there. That's what Carribert needs. These conditions are changing every single lap. It'll be the white flag the next time by. Carribert has never run a professional race in his life, sharing the car with Mimo Gidley, very experienced race car driver who returns to Daytona International Speedway in a prototype for the first time since a horrific accident in the Rolex 24 in 2014. The rookie trying to hold on. Cangialosi flashing the lights behind. A podium finish here for these two drivers would be like magic. Can they hold on? Carribert, he's been in the car for close to 2 hours. He has got to be exhausted, and he needs to hold on for one more lap. Time will be running out. White flag on Tony Kazimets.
Yeah. The good news for Carribert is that Cangialosi behind him is also in a Duquesne, so I don't think he's going to have that same top speed deficit that he appeared to have to the Ligiers. But he's certainly going to have his work cut out here to stay ahead of Dario Cangialosi. He's got 2 years of experience in these cars under his belt.
Carribert defensive to the inside in the International Horseshoe. Makes Cangialosi go around the high side. He can't get it done. Almost impossible to pass before the king. Don't worry about that. Put the car on its marks. Hit your line. Be defensive here in the brake zone. Make Cangialosi go wide. Contact. He hits him. Carribert off. He gains control. He's back on the racetrack. Cangialosi is behind him. Focus forward. A podium finish is yours. Meanwhile, Tony Kazimets still out in front. No pressure from Kujala right now. And Alexander Carribert, driving like a veteran, gets that push from behind, kept the wheel as straight as he could, kept the car under control, and able to get back underway. He needs to get to the finish line, and a podium finish in his first professional race will be his. Meanwhile, Tony Kazimets looking for the checkered flag for he and Bruce Hamilton. What a tremendous opening round this has been. Back to an endurance race for round 1 in IMSA Prototype Challenge. Tony Kazimets, Bruce Hamilton. They use a little lady luck, some strategy, and a lot of speed to take the win in round 1 here in 2022. Congratulations to them, a great run. Patrick Kujala is going to come home in 2nd, along with Brian Thenis, and for Mimo Gidley and this young man, Alexander Carribert. What a fantastic run. There is no reason to hang your head, no reason to be disappointed. To me, the finish more than they could have ever hoped for. It was a great run. It was a great race, Jeremy.
It certainly was. My hat's off to all these guys. Really tricky conditions during this 3-hour race. Tony Kazmet's using all of his experience there. Finally, the first win in this championship, in overall win, at least for Bruce Hamilton. Super well deserved, as we see the Serenos. Well, I guess the race finished almost like it started, but they are going to make get to the end of this, or maybe get to the end of this race. Boy, it's been a difficult day for those guys. But look, conditions have been really tricky, and it's been a tremendous motor race.
And it's the problems for the Sereno family have all come at the horseshoe.
One or other of the horseshoes, haven't they?
Yeah. Well.
So Cangialosi was able to get back out there and finish in the
finished fourth.
Yeah, in the fourth position. So, and we're still waiting to see whether Seb Priaulx can close up. Yeah, the replay here going into the horseshoe, and yeah,
Carribert did everything perfectly.
Textbook.
Exactly what he needed to do. He stayed tight, stayed defensive. He wasn't going to give Cangialosi the inside line, and that little bit of lockup is what propelled the 47 forward just a little bit, makes the ever so slight contact. And once again, great job by Carribert to keep the wheel straight, not panic, get on that asphalt, get the car slowed down, get it back on the track. And that's going to give them a podium finish. And, winning would have been great. I get it. I do. But I tell you, they can't be ashamed of the performance they put in today.
Yeah, absolutely tremendous performance by that team. I think they might question whether they needed to make their pit stop as early as they did, with just less than an hour remaining. If they'd stayed out one more lap, he would have had a full lap over everybody else. Ifs, ands, and buts. They don't win motor races. Good driving does win motor races. They drove well, but Tony Kazmet and Bruce Hamilton for Volvo Racing will come away with the victory.
Take a look at it again. The 60 of Kazmet and Hamilton up front. We talked about Brian Thiennes, Patrick Gajala finishing second. And again, what a great day for Memo Gidley. A triumphant return to Daytona International Speedway in a prototype. He qualified on pole. His young rookie teammate, just a stellar job to come home with that podium position. And then Cangialosi, he laid it all on the table, didn't he, Jeremy? Put it there at the end to see if he could get to the podium, just couldn't quite do it. But look to the rest of the field, some great stories.
Yeah, it was a great race all the way around. Seb Priaulx comes back to finish in sixth position. Courtney Crone managed to hold him off by 4 seconds. It's a great charge by Priaulx, who does have the consolation of the fastest lap of the race. Not a new record, which was set last year by Moritz Kranz at 43.0. 44.2 then was the best lap for Seb Priaulx. Nick Johnson, an excellent performance by another vast experienced driver to come home in 7th place. 1 lap down to the rest of the field. Danny 4 Miles from Costa Rica, a good performance for the CT Racing car number 46 to bring it home in 8th.
And I think for Joe Robillard and Stephen McAleer, they're going to look at not only this year, but the previous several years where they've had such bad luck here, and probably petition IMSA to not run Prototype Challenge again at Daytona. They've been so strong in other places and have had wins, but this place has their number. Lady Luck does not shine on them. Congratulations to Tony Kazmet's great run and chasing down the leader and taking over the lead and holding it in such difficult conditions here at the end. What I see for the rest of the season, Jeremy, is some great racing in Prototype Challenge.
Yeah, that was a great way to start the season. 3 hours here. The other races will be shorter than that. There'll be an hour and 45 minutes. But this was a tremendous way to start it all off. And I'm looking forward to all of the races in Prototype Challenge this year.
Kazmet, big hug for Bruce Hamilton. Hamilton saying, way to go, buddy, way to go. Also, so John Doonan down in victory circle. Congratulations all around. You said it, Jeremy, some really, really difficult conditions that these drivers face today. And when I look to the rest of the season, what I see is more of what we saw today. It's sprint races from here on out for IMSA Prototype Challenge. Jeremy Shaw and Brian Till, we had a ball today. Hope you did as well. The racing was great, soggy at first, but in the end, It's what we expect out of this series, out of these drivers. And we hope that you'll join us for the next race when round 2 of the 22 season comes up from Mid-Ohio. We'll see you then. So long, everyone. Thanks for joining us.